Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our November the 28th, 2023 Madison County Fiscal Court meeting. This is a regular scheduled meeting here at 239 West Main Street. We always appreciate Richmond City Commission allowing us to use their space while our courthouse is under renovation. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Clerk Barger, if you will, please call the roll.
Master Combs?
Here.
Master Lockmuller?
Here.
Master Hughes?
Here.
Master Botkin?
Present.
Judge Taylor?
Here. At this time, I'd like to invite my brother, Rob Taylor, up from Tates Creek Baptist Church to lead us in a word of prayer. Appreciate you being here, brother. And this is actually my brother. No, he's getting closer.
Let's pray. God, we thank you for your morning. We thank you for your creation. God, we thank you for opportunities to come and to gather in the great nation, in great communities, to exercise our liberties and our freedoms, to do the work of the people. God, we come this morning, and as we enter into this holiday season, as we come into this time of Christmas to celebrate the birth of your Son, Jesus, we ask for peace within our communities. We ask that these leaders here and those that are not with us, elected and unelected, would be granted your wisdom and discernment for how to lead us and how to carry us through the end of the year and into a new. We pray for our first responders. In this hectic season where everyone is busy and there's so much going on, Father, we pray for each and every first responder, that each and every man and woman would go home at the end of a shift. We thank you for this year as it comes to a close, for the opportunities. And we look forward to the next. And we ask that you would just guide us and help us to continue to build a great community, to build a great Madison County. It's the name of the Christ I pray. Amen.
Amen. Sheriff, if you will, lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Sheriff. Members of the court, y'all have had a chance to look over our previous meeting minutes. Those were minutes from our November the 14th fiscal court meeting. I need a motion and a second to approve, please.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Master Combs?
Yes.
Master Lockmuller?
Yes.
Master Hughes?
Yes.
Master Botkin?
Yes. Yes.
Judge Taylor?
Yes. Next is our treasurer's report. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Good to have you.
Thank you. As of October 31st, 2023, our total fund balance was $38,317,171.17. In our general fund, our revenues were at 27.8%, expenditures at 12.6%. The road fund, revenues 51.8%, expenditures 46.7%. The jail fund, revenues at 39.3%, expenditures at 30.4%. LGEA revenues were at 26.4%, expenditures 1.8%. CSEP fund revenues were 12.2%, expenditures 11.7%. Our 911 fund revenues were at 43.7%, expenditures at 29.6%. And our health fund revenues 22% and expenditures 17.3%.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Any questions? Thanks for the update, Sarah. Appreciate it. All right, next, first order of business today is Resolution 2023-134. This is a Leeboy 851 8515E Asphalt Paver Bid Award. Scott.
Good morning.
Good morning, buddy.
Resolution 2023-134, a resolution of the Madison County Fiscal Court to approve a bid award for a Leeboy 8515E asphalt paver for the Madison County Road Department. Whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court is required to approve of all bids for projects in accordance with the administrative code. And whereas the bids were needed for an asphalt paver due to the current paving equipment being beyond the end of life cycle and beyond repair. And whereas the bid notice was properly posted and one bid was received, opened, and reviewed. And whereas the Madison County Road Department recommends awarding the bid to Brandeis Machinery and Supply Company for a Leeboy 8515E asphalt paver in the amount of $234,538 with an anticipated delivery date of July 2024. And whereas with this anticipated delivery date of the asphalt paver being in July, the funds will be expended in the 24-2025 fiscal year budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the fiscal court does hereby approve this resolution and authorizes the judge executive and or his designee to negotiate and execute contracts on behalf of the county.
Thank you, Scott. Members of the court, y'all have heard Resolution 2023-134. What's the pleasure of the court?
Motion to approve Resolution 2023-134, Judge.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Scott, I saw something in the letter from the company that we don't rarely see in letters, but anyway, the company had just reached out to say that they were just wanting to make sure that you had, that their machine would meet the specifications you were asking for, and they were just wanting to talk to you about that. Did you get the opportunity to speak to them?
We did,
You're
and
comfortable
we went a
with
little further than that. I actually reached out to the Allen Company, which does most of our paving and a lot of paving for all the cities. And I spent about a half a day with them and looked at this machine and got their advice on what I needed to purchase to do the jobs that we needed to do, and this machine was recommended by them.
Oh, good. Also saw in it that, I don't know if it were your requirements or it was something that was in here, that it comes with the, I'm going to call it attachments, not attachments, but the thing to round off the pavement on the side. Is that correct?
Well, it's got an automatic crown feature. So in the middle of the road, you're going to have a crown to either send the water right or left.
Right.
So this machine calculates that in with the depth of the pavement. It automatically sets that crown for you and does it without having to turn wheels and instruments to make it do it.
Right. I guess it was the heated end gates that I was.
Yeah, what that is a lot of times when you're on a slow pull, the asphalt that is put out into each wing on each side gets cold, and it doesn't look right on the edge of the pavement. If you've ever noticed, you'll see a difference in the edges than you will the middle. So this keeps the asphalt at one temperature, so you should have a consistent lay.
I know that on a lot of the state roads, they have the opportunity to round off, if you will, the edges so that if somebody drops off, it's not near as dangerous trying to get back up on the road. They don't have to overcorrect so bad.
Yeah.
I hope it has that feature that we can do that.
Scott, just for the record, why don't you talk a little bit about just our old paver?
Okay.
Just to make sure those that are watching, those that are here today, I'm sure there's some that'll see that price tag and think, oh my goodness, $200,000 for a paver. But talk a little bit about our paver that we have and how old it is. And
Our current paver and what brought all this, we've known it's been going bad for a long time, and it's been really hard to get parts for. But we recently went down on Herndon Lane and was going to do some patching before winter, and already had ordered blacktop. So we got down there, and the tire blew out, and we could not get replacement wheel for it. The wheel had rusted out. So the city of Richmond was gracious enough to bring their paver down and help us lay that blacktop. But we're at the point with the age of the paver, as much tonnage has been put through it and not being able to get parts, that we have to make a move now. And I just feel like it's better to go with new equipment, and that way we can keep up with it from the beginning.
do you know any idea how old our paver actually is?
It's about 32 years old.
32 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
There was when I was a maintenance officer in the Army, there was a point in time where that, and I think that if I remember correct, the number was 65 or 70%, where that if the maintenance cost was going to exceed that, we didn't repair it. We didn't repair anything. We just took parts and everything else and scrapped or sold the rest of it, whatever was left over. So
It's took us a long time, but we're finally getting in the position where we've saved so much money that we're able to buy new equipment, and we've really got our equipment in good shape.
Yep.
We make strides at it every year, but we're finally getting where we're comfortable and we've got real good stuff to work with.
I know you do a really good job down there. I said that merely just to say that there's a point in time where that
Sure.
it's cheaper just to buy something new than to keep putting good money into something that's going to be tore up with something else in just a short period of time.
Scott, I want to commend you and the staff, your staff, for just situations like this where we're able to buy something new, because our constituents expect roads that they can drive over. And I happened to see the old paver, and, you know, not knowing anything about it, it didn't look very good to me. So, you know, saving money and trying to do what's right for our constituents and getting a new piece of equipment in here, I think is right on target. And I want to thank you and your staff for doing that. We're going to use that thing. We probably won't be here when it's worn out,
I hope not.
or I won't be anyway. But it's going to help us make some roads better and
Sure.
keep some people happy, which is part of our job as well. Thank you.
And just so the court realizes too, that this is allowing us to go ahead and purchase it because of the supply chain issues. We're not going to get it till later. I know it says it in the resolution, but this will be in next year's budget for the cost, so, yeah. All right.
Wait, Scott, I want to ask you about, you know, we're paving a lot of roads in the county that are paved roads that hadn't ever been paved before, and Tom was alluding to it, these drop-off shoulders that created, you know, you fix one thing and you create another issue. And I know the city of Richmond, they just repaved a bunch of streets, but they went in and ground off a lot of the old pavement, and we haven't gotten into that mode of taking down some old pavement to be able to put some back. But you know, are we thinking about that in the future? Because some of these shoulders, we go in and put gravel on them, you know, the shoulders, so they don't drop off so bad. But if you're on a hillside, you get a big rain and the rock's gone, and next thing you know, narrow roads, hard for cars to pass. And anyway,
It's a great process to be able to go to grind these roads down before you lay the asphalt. It's just that the cost is so expensive.
very expensive, I know.
It's about $2, and last time I checked, I think it was $2.85 per foot to mill a 4-foot wide section. So if you have say a $30,000 asphalt job, you're going to add another $7,000 or $8,000 to that for footage to get it milled.
Some of the roads are getting heavily tracked, like Hunter Lane and some of these
Yes.
other roads, and so it's just something I know we're going to have to deal with sometime.
And I'll be glad to discuss that with you all on a basis of what roads that we're going to pay for you that year. If you have a concern about one of your roadways, you know, we can go ahead and figure in having it milled, and we can mill it at the same time before we pave it.
Well, there are some places where we do that. We milled over in Deacon Hills before we blacktopped over in there just a couple of years ago.
Well, we mill everywhere that there's curb and gutter.
Yeah.
So if we've got concrete curb and gutter, we have to mill it, or your asphalt would be higher than your gutter, and then your water runoff wouldn't work right. So everywhere that's curb and gutter, we do mill no matter what.
You have to contract that out, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did buy a small milling machine that goes on our Bobcat this year, and we have used it a lot, but it's mainly for like patches. You know, it won't withstand the use of doing like a whole subdivision. The machine to do that is well over $1 million.
Okay. The places where I've seen your machine work, Airport Road, I think
Yes.
it's a good example of that. It's worked really well. I
Yes.
appreciate that.
It makes the patch really smooth.
Yeah, another thing on those shoulders sometimes, though, I think, you know, in the past you have used sometimes you use rock, but there are times that it'd be better to use dirt and sow some grass seed. I mean, the rock washes off because you don't have any ground cover there to hold the dirt in place or hold the rock in place. And so some of those situations, if it gets real bad, dirt would be a better choice than it would be gravel, you know. So, anything else?
I just thank you, Scott, for your hard work, and look forward to seeing this over in the First District. You
Appreciate
can use it
that.
over there anytime you want.
I understand that.
I think he's taking dibs for in July.
He wants
See
the
it-
first
see it
run,
work.
right?
Yeah, first run.
I don't care, run it if you let me, as long as you can see in the First District.
We can sure use the help.
All right, anything else? All right. We do have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2023-134. Call the roll.
Master Lockmuller?
Yes.
Master Hughes?
Yes.
Master Bockett?
Yes.
Master Combs?
Yes.
Judge Taylor?
Yes.
Thank you all. For
Appreciate it,
continuing
Scott. Thank you. Next, Resolution 2023-135. This is the Madison County Planning Commission Board appointment. Ms. Jill Williams is here to read the resolution. The next three are Planning Commission Board appointments. So, Jill, go ahead.
Yes, this is a resolution for the appointment of the Madison County Fiscal Court to the Madison County Planning Commission Board, whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court is responsible for the appointment of the Madison County Planning Commission Board members, and whereas the current term for Brian Adams is set to expire December 30th, 2023. And whereas Brian Adams has proven his capability in serving as a member of the Madison County Planning Commission Board and is willing to continue to serve in this capacity. And whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court has found Brian Adams as fit for the position as board member of the Madison County Planning Commission Board, now therefore be it resolved that the Fiscal Court does hereby approve this resolution and authorizes the judge executive and/or his designee to execute the same on behalf of the county.
Thank you, Jill. Members of the court, you've heard Resolution 2023-135. Do I have a motion and a second?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-135.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Master Bucking.
Yes.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Master Lockmiller.
Yes.
Judge Taylor.
Yes. Next, Resolution 2023-136.
This is a resolution for the appointment of the Madison County Fiscal Court to the Madison County Planning Commission Board. Whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court is responsible for the appointment of Planning Commission Board members, and whereas the current term for Bill Buchanan is set to expire January 7th, 2024, and whereas Bill Buchanan has proven his capability in serving as a member of the Madison County Planning Commission Board and is willing to continue to serve in this capacity. Whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court has found Bill Buchanan as fit for the position as board member of the Madison County Planning Commission Board. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fiscal Court does hereby approve this resolution and authorizes the judge executive and/or his designee to execute the same on behalf of the county.
Motion approved Resolution 2023-136, Judge.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Master Bucking.
Yes.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Master Lockmiller.
Yes.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Judge Taylor.
Yes. Next, Resolution 2023-137.
And this is also a resolution for the appointment of the Madison County Fiscal Court to the Madison County Planning Commission Board. Whereas Madison County Fiscal Court is responsible for the appointment of the Madison County Planning Commission Board members. And whereas the current term for Mary Eipert is set to expire January 7th, 2024. And whereas Mary Eipert has proven her capability in serving as a member of the Madison County Planning Commission Board and is willing to continue to serve in this capacity. And whereas Madison County Fiscal Court has found Mary Eipert as fit for the position as board member of the Madison County Planning Commission Board. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fiscal Court does hereby approve this resolution and authorizes the judge executive and/or his designee to execute the same on behalf of the county.
Thanks again, Jill. Members of the court, you've heard Resolution 2023-137.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-137.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Hey, Judge, I just want to say, I saved it till we got to the end of them, but that all of these folks are good individuals, and we're very thankful that they're willing to give their time and serve on these boards, and they do a great job, and we certainly appreciate all that.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for your kind words. Their appointments will expire on December 31st, 2027, so just for the record, that's how long their terms will go for. Mary and Bucky Bill has served multiple terms so far. Brian this is his first full term. Brian has filled in. I think he filled in for
He completed
somebody else's term that had resigned, and so we appointed Brian not too very long ago. So. All right. Any other discussion? Comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Master Lockmiller.
Yes.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Master Bucking.
Yes.
Judge Taylor.
Yes. Thank you, Jill. Next, Resolution 2023-138. This is a resolution to approve the 2024 Madison County Fiscal Court meeting schedule. Whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court has established a fiscal court meeting schedule, and whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court meeting schedule is updated annually, which is attached here to this resolution. And whereas our great partners of the City of Berea and the City of Richmond have agreed to let us continue using their chambers during the courthouse renovation project. And whereas once we have the final plans and timeline of the courthouse completion, we will determine the locations for the second half of 2024 meeting schedule. Now therefore be it resolved that the fiscal court does hereby approve the 2024 Madison County Fiscal Court meeting schedule. And as you all saw on your attachment, we are going to be doing just what we've done this year, alternating between Berea and Richmond. So the first meeting of the month, which is the second Tuesday, will be in Berea. The second meeting of the month, which is the fourth Tuesday, will be in Richmond. And we'll be carrying that all the way through July the 9th. And then we just put the rest of the fiscal court meetings the rest of the year is to be determined. So just for the record. All right, y'all have heard Resolution 2023-138. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Master Lockmiller,
Yes.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Buckley,
Yes.
Master Combs,
Yes.
Judge Taylor.
Yes. Next, Resolution 2023-139. This is a Madison County Temporary Circuit Courthouse lease and addendum. A resolution approving the lease and addendum modifications to a lease agreement between Madison County Fiscal Court and the Kentucky Administrative Office of the Courts. This resolution supersedes Resolution 2023-122. Whereas on May 1st, 2022, the Madison County Fiscal Court, hereinafter referred to as the county or leaseor, and the Administrative Office of the Courts, hereinafter AOC or leasee, entered into a lease agreement for space for the Kentucky Court of Justice to operate the circuit court for Madison County on a temporary basis. And whereas on May 1st, 2022, the parties entered into a lease addendum whereby the leaseor would be responsible for fitting up the leased premises per the specifications in paragraph 1 of the lease addendum. And whereas on July 22nd, 2022, the parties entered into modification number 1 to the lease addendum to add a third circuit judge suite on the second floor and a hearing room on the first floor of the Madison County Temporary Circuit Courthouse. And whereas the AOC desires to lease additional space with revisions to the second floor and basement of the Madison County Temporary Circuit Courthouse, and whereas the AOC began leasing the temporary court space on November 1st, 2022, the rent payment arrears for the AOC in the amount of $60,957.62 are now due to the county. In addition, the AOC's monthly build-out payment arrears in the amount of $1,295,000 are now due to the county, which includes the additional square footage. The county's receipt of these payments will make the AOC's lease payments current through December 2023. And whereas the parties agree to the terms and the specifications set forth in the lease modification number 1 and the lease addendum modification number 2, and Exhibit A to retroactively go into effect September 1st, 2023. All other terms and conditions of this lease agreement will remain the same, which are attached here to this resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that the fiscal court does hereby approve this resolution and authorizes the judge executive and or his designee to negotiate and execute contracts on behalf of the county.
Motion approved Resolution 2023-139, Judge.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can you briefly, just in a short version of it, tell folks what this, why we have this? And we saw lots of schematics and drawings and things like that, and just kind of update the public on what's going on there, Judge.
Well, I will try. I don't know if I can promise to do it short, but I'll try. So obviously everybody's aware of the courthouse renovation, which led to, I guess, a spin-off project where we bought the Chase Bank building for it to be a temporary circuit court space. So in that, the county purchased that building. Then in the negotiations with the AOC, we leased it back to them where they pay rent. And then they also did about a $1.8 million renovation to that building. In the agreement, they originally had, these aren't exact numbers, but they originally had probably like 16,000 square feet. They ended up needing more space, so they increased it a couple different times, where they basically ended up landing at 24,000 square feet, including space in the basement that they use for filing, along with the entire second floor. So they've got 10,000 basically on the first floor, 10,000 second floor, and I think it's about 4,100 in the basement square footage. And so this is the original. I think the original cost to the project too was $1.2 million, which by adding a third circuit judge increased more space, additional work in the construction process, which took the amount up to about $1.8 million. And so in the lease, they pay us a monthly lease payment. We get it quarterly, and then on reimbursing us back for the construction cost, once it was complete, then they they broke that down in the life of the lease on a monthly payment. And so in this, the 1.2 million or almost 1.3 is catching us up because they've not made that payment yet because they were still working on things, heating and air units and things like that. And then they're going back and reimbursing us for the rent payment that they hadn't paid for up until this point.
Sure. So basically, in the long and short version of it, a building that we paid $750,000 for has been updated and reinvented to fit the courts for $1.8 million.
Yes.
In the long and short version.
Yes, and we will collect over the 20 months of the rent. I think it's approximately about almost $400,000, maybe a little over $400,000 in rent. So yes, to your point, it is a very good return on investment for us and for the Madison County taxpayers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I hope that was short enough. And I hope I understood it, or I hope I explained it correctly. Well, I know I explained it correctly, but I hope I explained it where y'all can understand. Yeah. So, any other questions? All right. We do have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2023-139. If there's no more discussion, call the roll.
Master Hughes?
Yes.
Master Botkin?
Yes.
Master Combs?
Yes.
Master Lockmiller?
Yes.
Judge Taylor?
Yes. All right, next is Employee Spotlight.
Yes, I am pinch hitting for Morgan again this week. She's conducting interviews, but this is always a fun part to be able to do and highlight our staff. So this week's Employee Spotlight has been with us for 10 months, and this is what her coworker had to say about her. Jessie is a hard worker who is dedicated to her job and responsibilities. She is a key factor in the success of our department, and every department needs someone like Jessie. She is currently the finance officer at Madison County EMA CSEP, and this, I cannot say enough good things about what she's done in a very difficult time and situation of transition of projects at Madison County EMA CSEP. So this week's Employee Spotlight, nominated by her peers, was Jessie Russell, or is Jessie Russell, I guess.
Yeah. Did y'all get your?
We did get that. I really enjoyed that. Thank you for including that in the court documents. And she's not here, but I think it'd be appropriate to give her a round of applause.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
Jill said it well when, she came in kind of at a tough time. We've always said as a court, Kenny Barger says it often that you want employees that everybody else wants. You don't want employees that nobody wants. Jennifer and Dustin got picked up by Kentucky EMA and Emergency Management, and so that left a void there. But Jessie has come in and hit the ground running. She wouldn't even been here a year yet, has she?
10 months.
10 months, okay.
10 months,
Yeah.
I think, is what it says on my
Yeah,
sheet
10
here.
months. I'm sorry.
And I
didn't
think
see
she
that.
supports Chief in his role, his new role as EMA Director, and as we close out a lot of projects and make sure those stay on budget and on track, that's pretty critical in some of these big projects that you all are aware of, like the 800 megahertz radio system, the siren projects, and all those things. She has definitely made sure that those are on track and on budget, so kudos to her.
Yeah, she's great.
Always a good thing whenever we get new employees that can make an immediate impact on our organization, Judge. That's a tough spot with a big learning curve, and she's obviously accomplished that if her colleagues think so.
And FEMA's no easy feat.
No,
Exactly.
no, they're not. Thank you, Jessie. Appreciate it. I'm sure she's watching. Yeah. All right, next is Judge's report. I do have a few announcements. This time of year, we've got a lot of community events, a lot of community functions going on, so I want to announce some of those to make sure people know what's going on. If they want to participate, they can. Project Warm Feed is a community service project to collect crew-link socks for the less fortunate. The collection event will kick off November the 28th, which is today, and continue through December the 20th. You can drop off your donations off at the Battle of Richmond Visitor Center. The socks will be donated to various groups throughout Madison County. Join this coming Friday is my State of the County address. It'll be on Friday at 12 p.m. at EKU Perkins Building. You can purchase tickets online at www.richmondchamber.com. If you're unable to attend, you can watch it live on our Madison County, Kentucky or Richmond Chamber's Facebook page. The Christmas parade's coming up. So Friday night will be Richmond's Christmas Parade on December the 1st at 7 p.m. Berea's Christmas Parade will be on Saturday, December the 2nd at 6 p.m. Please be mindful of road closures and increased traffic in those areas. If you're not going to be attending the parades, you might want to use the bypasses or go a different direction. Also, maybe you want to go a different direction on Saturday morning because the EKU's graduation ceremonies will begin at 9 a.m. at Alumni Coliseum. Again, there will be traffic, I'm sure, on the EKU bypass. A holiday-themed craft show will be at the Richmond Mall on Saturday, December 2nd from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. featuring handmade crafts and holiday treats by local artists. St. Mark's Church Annual Christmas Bazaar will be Saturday, December the 2nd from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. at St. Mark's Catholic Church here in Richmond on Main Street. Richmond Parks and Recreation is happy to introduce, this is fun, introduce ice skating to Irvin McDowell Park December the 7th through the 10th. Registration is required to participate. Visit Parks and Rec at richmond.ky.us for more information. So anybody that wants to participate in ice skating, family fun, friends fun, you can contact the Richmond Parks and Rec. The 2023 Berea Chamber of Commerce Annual Banquet will be on Thursday, December the 7th at 6 p.m. at Churchill's. Visit www.bereachamberofcommerce.org to purchase tickets. And then Mayor Fraley's State of the City address will be on Monday, December the 11th at 6 p.m. at the Russell Acton Folk Center in Berea, and that's down off of Jefferson Street. Madison County 4-H is hosting a Christmas party at the Cooperative Extension Office located at 2030 Duncannon Lane in Richmond on Friday, December 15th from 5 to 8. All families are welcome. Visit the Madison County 4-H Facebook page for more information. We've got a lot going on. Thank you for listening to my report. At this time, we'll open it up comments from magistrates. Brian.
Judge, you were talking about traffic and parades. I think tomorrow the new Berea bypass is scheduled to open, so hopefully that'll alleviate a lot of traffic in that area and help, especially during the parade time.
Good timing.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's something we've been waiting on a long time, and we're thankful for it. But other than that, Judge, just glad to be here.
Glad you're here, buddy. Steve.
I'm tickled to be here. So, but anyway, I want to, just a couple things. One, Scott, appreciate you all getting out to Jolly Ridge Road. That fella's already gotten back to me, and very thankful that we were able to help him with his driveway. And also wanted to mention that I thank the constituents of District 2 for being patient with our fiber project. I will send out a little apology to Jim Carr, who I think had a cow fall into a pit.
Okay.
But I'm sure Jim, will be able to take care of it and everything will be fine. But the fiber project's going well. And Chris, thank you all, and thank everybody that's involved in that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. Billy Ray.
Let's see. Brian said he's glad to be here. He was tickled to be here. I'm just happy to be here then. How about that?
Good.
I'm good.
You good? Tom?
I don't have a lot this time either, Judge, but I just want to say that I appreciate it when folks, we can see this today, the courthouse is full of them, when folks will take the time to call me about issues regardless of what it is. 90% of the time I'm hearing about a pothole in front of somebody's house, but it doesn't make any difference. There's nothing that's too big or nothing too small, and I appreciate folks that care enough about their community that will show up and that will make phone calls and do things like that. So that's all I have, Judge. If anybody needs me, they can reach me at 200-9765.
Thanks, Tom. Jenny? You good? Kenny? I think you wanted to talk a little bit about...
Cavis and Avis.
Yes, the clerk's office.
Been
having
talking
closed.
about Cavis and Avis for 13 years since I've been in office. I've been on the steering committee for the new database for 10. Avis is our legacy database for motor vehicles, auto vehicle information systems. Been using it since '84. It was designed in the '70s, so you can imagine how antiquated it is. First step, when I took office, they were right in the middle of doing a job with 3M, and they backed out. Lawsuits flew and all that kind of thing. Kansas went ahead with it, and they were up and down basically for a month. So wisely, we didn't go that route. We hired people in Transportation Cabinet to design our own database that we're calling CAVIS. And it's a scary time, but it's an exciting time because we're getting ready to switch over to it. That's what I'm going to talk about, the dates. There will be a press release coming out, and we'll hit every outlet we possibly can to make people aware of what's going on. So on the 29th of December is the last day that you're going to be able to register a vehicle on Avis. So everybody out there, we need you to come on in and get your stuff taken care of. So the 29th is the last day. And we also, steering committee set this up so it's over holidays. So the impact's going to be less on the citizen. And the CAVIS team will be doing what they need to do. They're going to move the data over, all that technical stuff that I'm not familiar with, but they tell me what it's going to take, and I'm hoping that they're under promise and going to over deliver. I think we're going to be up faster than what we think they anticipate. So the 29th is the last day you can register a motor vehicle. Our office will be open every day of this except for one, and I'll mention that. So the first and second are holidays. On the 3rd, motor vehicles will be closed. Our other office functions will be open. On the 4th, we're taking the opportunity, since we're going to be most of the office is going to be shut down, that we're going to do a team building day, a whole lot of stuff with motor vehicles folks, because we don't ever get that opportunity to do that. And then on the 5th, Friday, we'll be back open for marriage license, passports, that kind of stuff. Motor vehicles will still be closed. What we anticipate is the 5th, that Friday evening, they're going to be able to turn the new database on and give us access to it. So during those 2 days that we're closed, if you're paying with a check, basically is all we can take, and you come in, we're going to take your stuff, get you information, put it all together, and we'll process that as soon as we open back up and mail your stuff out to you. That way you're not having to come back to the office a second time. The other thing should be turning back on is the online renewals will be turned back on the 5th. The other thing I want to mention is, because this is a closure of our office, the interest and penalty, so if you go 5 days over, interest and penalty will be completely waived on this, because it's totally out of your control that you couldn't license your car in the correct amount of time. But I encourage people to please come on in before the 29th and get their stuff done if they can. I know that Clerk Holsclaw up in Jefferson County kind of jumped the gun with a news story that, their stuff gets spread a little further than mine. Said we're going to be closed for 12 days. Absolutely not. Because I'm on the steering committee, there's about 12 counties that they're turning this on. They're calling it the 8th, but they're really hopefully turning it on Friday on the 5th. That's the first day that we can open back up. They're going to add counties on as things allow. If everything goes well, hopefully we start on the 8th, they start about another 20 on the 9th, and then everybody in the pool on the 10th, because it's running so well they don't have any problems. That's what I anticipate. We have worked, and the group has worked, like I say, for 10 years to get this thing up and where it should be, and we've had some difficulties, of course you do with any project this size, but I'm really excited because this is the first piece to modernize our motor vehicle system. The next piece is liens. Right now, we handle a piece of paper 4 times to record a lien in 2 different systems. I try not to think about it because it drives me crazy. That's a whole person just in Madison County. That's a whole person that does nothing but liens. We'll integrate liens into CAVIS. So when you come in, when we process dealer work, it's all done at once. And the dealer electronically gets their goldenrod back, which that's getting technical, but that means they can get their money from the lender. And that's what they're interested in. So this is the first step to really open this thing up so we can really start to modernize how we do. We're going to be coming with electronic titles, dealer work's going to change completely about how dealer work all moves with paper right now. That's all going to completely change. It's really going to, this database has held us up for decades, basically. Yeah, I'm ready for questions.
So Kenny, you mentioned that, if somebody's paying with a check, that they can bring their payment in. You all basically take it, you just won't.
We can't process it.
You won't process it till a couple days later, but, so you wouldn't be able to do cash?
We're not going to take, the auditors will put my head on a spike.
Right. And you're
We're
not
taking
going to be able to
cash,
take credit
and we're not
card?
gonna be able to take credit card because we can't look up to see, you may have delinquent taxes on another car that we don't know about and you don't know about. If we don't, then that's going to totally hold that transaction up. You're going to have to come back anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So it really doesn't save any steps in the process.
And then, if y'all get a flyer to us, I'm sure we can post it.
Like
on
I say, we wanted to hammer these dates out, and this is our anticipated plan. And yeah, Landry and I are already working on a press release to get this out, because I don't want, the state is sending press releases out, Transportation Cabinet, and they're going to continue to, but theirs has nothing to do with our plan. Basically, every county is going to have their own plan, because some of these counties aren't going to open up until that, what is it, the 15th or the 12th or something. They're going to be down for days and days. So I want to be sure that we got our plans tailored to Madison County, and we're going to be shut down for the fewest days possible.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Kenny, for being willing to, serve on a sort of a statewide committee. I mean, this is a big deal, and I'm proud of when, our elected officials in Madison County go outside the county to serve on things and committees and things like that benefit our taxpayers. So,
well, this just means a lot to our bottom line as clerks. And if we don't get more, Madison County is a very prosperous county. Money moves and comes and goes in of our office, and we're very fortunate. If you go, I always say this, you go any county left or right of I-75, it's not that way. They struggle to make payroll. If we don't do things like this to get more efficient, and we're in government, like I said, I've been working on this 10 years. We've been involved in this 10 years. In private, we'd have done it in 2, because we couldn't have waited.
Right.
But this helps us become more efficient as an office, and that helps lower our cost. Our main cost is payroll and benefits. That's all there is to it.
yeah.
We talk about making government more efficient, but you've done it. You don't just talk about it, you've done it. We're
Well,
fortunate to
thank
have
you. And it's not any fun. I got a tattoo. I don't think my mom and daddy know it, especially my mama, but it's SSLV, short steps, long vision. That's why I got it, because this stuff drives me nuts. I'm used to doing things like right now. If it needs to be done, it needs to be done. But it's a process. This press release, not to bash any other elected official in the state, but this press release took 2 weeks to get approved by the governor's office. Why, on God's green, does the governor's office need to approve a press release? First of all, the transportation cabinet's putting out, and why does it take 2 weeks? That's what you got to deal with every day.
Appreciate it. Any questions for Kenny?
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff, do you have anything? No? All right. Department heads. Any department heads need to? Scott?
I just want to give everybody a quick update on our snow routes and snow removal. We're moving into that season. Currently, we are still 4 full-time drivers short. So if the magistrates would like to stop by and chat with me what our plan is, or
I thought you were going to ask if they wanted to volunteer.
that's coming next.
Okay.
That's when they come. I ask them if they want to volunteer. But that's still with Kenny. He volunteers his time for no pay, and he pushes snow for us every year. But we do need 4 full-time drivers. We have been able to hire 2 part-time drivers. So we're actually only 2 routes down right now, but that's without anybody being sick. So if people don't know, we have 19 routes. We have over 500 miles that we take care of. Each route for a 4-inch snow takes 8 hours to push. So the maximum we're allowed to be out there is 16 hours. So if we don't generate some help, then there is going to be layovers on some routes. And I think we just need to get ahead of it and discuss it. Or if anybody is looking for a full-time CDL position or a part-time CDL position, please contact us. Go to our website. We have the post linked for the job postings, and we'd be glad to sit down and have an interview. Thank you all.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Any other department heads? Mayor Blythe, it's great to have you here. Appreciate you joining us. Yeah.
Good morning.
All right, next is comments from the audience. I know we have a group of citizens here today, and not sure, Stephen Shear, I know I talked to Stephen. Is Stephen here? Yeah. Stephen, I talked to you on the phone.
Yeah, I spoke to a few.
Uh-huh, yeah. So you're welcome to come up. If you don't care, Stephen, just state your name and
My name
your
is Stephen Shear.
address, where you live.
Can you hear me? My name is Stephen Shear. I live in Deacon Hills. All right. I'm here about the, what do you want to call it, drug recovery residence at 101 Pleasant. These are the signatures of people that agree with me that that does not belong there. Do you want these, sir?
Yeah, you can. You can give them to Jenny.
That's just a fraction of the people, because most people are at work, where they probably are today. Thank you. When I spoke to you, I spoke to your office, I've spoken to you, I spoke to planning and zoning. Here's what I learned. Your office says it's planning and zoning's fault. I hear nothing can be done. You say it's Frankfurt. Planning and zoning says it's you. That's what we're left with here. And so I stand here with, what do I got? 300 seconds. 300 seconds to discuss how I feel about the safety of my home, the security of my home, the integrity of my neighborhood, and the value of my investment. If I went onto the website there of planning and zoning, he'd talk at length about how important buying a home is, and he'd be right. You, on yours, you would talk about embracing our responsibility to provide counsel, protect, and serve. I don't feel like I've been provided counsel. I don't feel like I've been protected or served. And I think that fundamentally that is why you are here, to protect and to serve. This is a bad decision. This is bad law. And all the statutory yada yada doesn't get by that. This is bad. Does anybody think that putting a high-risk population in a residential neighborhood is good? Then say so. Then stand up and say so. If you stand up, we will stand with you. You know, I could say a lot more. I'm really disappointed with you. I tell my sons that we're defined by what we stand for. Well, we didn't stand. We weren't even told this was going to happen. We weren't allowed to put this on the agenda. I got 300 seconds. In the end, this will be a political decision, and this will come back. This won't lie here. What you've done here is wrong.
So, Ms. Shear, so one thing I want to make sure that everybody realizes is that we've not done anything. So we don't govern what somebody buys a house and what they do to it. Since this has been brought to our attention, we have had meetings and we have dove into it. I've read documents, I've read state law, I've read case law where, you know, these situations have happened. I mean, I have letters from where the city of Richmond has had this same thing, Somerset, Hardin County, Kenton County, and we seek guidance from our council. You know, some things go beyond our administrative duties and responsibilities as county government, and it becomes a legal situation.
Let me respond to that, sir. The problem is that you haven't done anything. That's where the problem
So
lies.
what
Now, let me
would-
finish.
what
here.
would you
Hold on.
ask us
this
to
is
do?
my 300 seconds. No, sir. This is my 300
Mr.
seconds.
Scheer, you are gonna
we could have had a
respect-
discussion,
Sheriff-
but you wouldn't put it on the agenda. If you want me
Sheriff-
to leave, I'll leave.
You are going to respect this court. We are here to have a respectful conversation.
Did you
And
respect us?
Absolutely, I've respected you. I've
If
got
you had
emails.
respected us, would have been on the agenda.
The opportunity is now during audience comments. Why does there need to be that? We don't put that on the agenda. If there is something that comes after this discussion as under audience comments, then we would put that on the agenda.
Do you realize that in my time to speak, you have spoken more than me?
Mr. Scheer, nobody's up here with a stopwatch. Nobody's
Okay.
timing
Well,
you.
I just want to tell you
can
that
speak
we're
till you
not
get
down
done
with
speaking.
this, and we expected you to stand up and say no.
Mr.
That
Scheer,
this is
again,
bad law, and we expected you to stay. And that's sometimes what you have to do. You have to just stand up and say, hey, Frankfurt, this is no. We say no to this, and we want you to put your name and your face beside this. That's what has to be done. Because until this is raised as a political albatross around somebody's neck, nothing's going to happen here. And this is a high, high risk thing. These people will relapse. Those coming out of criminal justice, are they coming out of criminal justice? Are they on paper? Can anybody answer that? Nobody's willing to answer that. Are they coming with mental health referrals? Nobody wants to answer that. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer. Anybody else would like to speak? Sure, there's a couple of you. And y'all, you can come on up or,
My name's Doug Bagby. I've been a resident of Deacon Hills. Well, I moved down here in '72. It started out then. But anyway, we had just come out last year. We had a house that was bought, and they were going to try to cram 25 men into a single-family residential 1,400 square foot house. And frankly, the only way that we were able to prevent this was public opposition. And like I told the people that were running it, was best for us and them if it just didn't happen. I want to state that, you know, most of us here don't have anything against people who are trying to do drug rehabilitation. I think it's a wonderful program. They need to, you know, they need to have somewhere, but it's not good in a single-family residential neighborhood that has a lot of kids and children and everything going around. Most of the people that I have seen going in and out of this house, they're I mean, you know, good people and everything, but there's many other reasons that people will probably come up with today that it shouldn't be there. My thing is we keep hearing about the American Disabilities Act, and that's the only reason that this can happen. And my question is, how does this supersede all the laws that are in effect, like, for instance, fire regulations? You get this many people in a house, what kind of fire regulations are there? Is it supposed to be sprinkled? Is there supposed to be different marked exits or so forth? You know, years ago there was the Beverly Hills Supper Club fire, and that killed like 100 and some people. Well, when that happened, they changed a lot of the state laws to protect things like this. I don't know about, you know, they didn't have halfway houses on the books, I'm sure. The other thing I've looked at, and I'm sure the judge has too, is the HUD requirements. You know, that you can only have so many people per bedroom and everything. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I can't look into all that, but I appreciate him looking into this stuff. What about their safety? You know, a lot of people aren't thinking about their safety. Okay, where it's located, they have to walk almost a mile just to get out of the subdivision. Most of them don't have transportation. if they can afford it, they get an Uber or a taxi, but most of them walk or try to bike out of the subdivision in and out. Well, it's at night and dark and rainy. One of them's going to get hit by a car, and then what happens? We hit them with a car, then we get sued. You know, it happens. So, you know, we need to think about that. What about our property values? There's a gentleman here today that's going to talk about how his property value went down when this happened when he lived here in town. It just, I hate to sound like a NIMBY, but it shouldn't be in our backyard. I don't know if you all would want this next to you or not. You'd be concerned about your kids, your grandkids, and so forth. We don't know. I mean, you know, Halloween we had an incident. A couple of them came up and grabbed a whole bunch of candy. I mean, out of both bowls and took it, and then they set up a Halloween party, and wanted to charge people to come to it. And this is unreal. And again, it's a shame that, you know, zoning is so good, and it's for our protection, everybody's protection, it's there for reasons. And we should respect those zoning laws and also our deed restrictions. And, you know, we've had things come up before with somebody tried to start a business in the neighborhood years ago, and it turned out they were using acetylene tanks and everything else trying to repair cars and stuff right in the middle of the neighborhood. And that's why we have zoning, because, you know, that's a dangerous thing to have right in the middle of a residential area. So that's what I want to say, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it or anything, but hopefully with people like our county judge and our magistrates and all that, maybe there's something in the future we can do, prevent more of these from coming in. I don't know what we can do with the current situation. And with that being said, I do wish they would at least take care of the home. It hadn't changed since it went up for auction. There's still the same weeds and trees and brush laying down on the ground. I mean, they could at least put them to work a little bit and paint some things or try to make the place look better. One day they were working on a bunch of cars, and there was fluids running all over the ground and everything, you know, antifreeze and things like that. Neighborhood dogs are running through. So we got all these concerns, let alone all the issues with recovering drug addicts, which, like I say again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's really good. The city of Richmond, Mayor Blythe has done some wonderful things with it, but it should be where it's at. And I think you all know of all the repercussions and reasons for that. It'll be rehashed over and over, but I just wanted to speak my 2 cents because I used to be over the homeowners association for years there, and it's not the first time I've been up here.
Yeah.
But
Do you mind if I ask a couple questions?
yeah,
You mentioned the homeowners association and deed restrictions. Do you all have an active homeowners association?
yes, we do.
Do you have deed restrictions?
We have deed restrictions in our deeds, and we have we try to enforce them. We've had a lot harder time in the last several years enforcing things like, you know, the simple things like if there's an abandoned car in a street, or tall grass, or, you know, something like that. It's getting harder to take care of those things. I know it's probably manpower. I don't know what it is, but I think we used to have Doug Tussey over zoning, codes enforcement, and Scott Tussey, and all we would have to do is fill out a form, and you know, if there was an abandoned car or something and somebody didn't care, it got towed off, and the owner was charged for it. And those were usually dangerous situations, like the main drive coming in, it'd be on the street or whatever, but or in the backyard or whatever. You know, things that downgrade the neighborhood. And as a homeowners association, you know, we collect dues every year. We're incorporated, and we try to have quarterly meetings, and then we have special meetings when things like this come up. And we had many meetings about the last one, and that's the public pressure is what kind of helped it go out of there. And we were happy for that. But, yeah, we do have an active homeowners association, and we do have dues collection. I'm wondering, can we charge each person that lives there dues, yearly dues? I mean, that would be good. But it's supposed to be a single-family residential. And we were hoping that would protect us. But through, I'm calling a loophole with the American Disabilities Act, and apparently it's very lucrative. I've heard of different amounts of things that people get per month, and I've never seen anything in writing, so I'm not going to quote anything, but just how we all feel. And that's, I think, how many people are here for Deacon Hills? Yeah, that's why we're here. And granted, this time in the morning also, I mean, there's people at work and everything, so that's how it is, and we're just very concerned about everything. And I appreciate your time to let us have some time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Brian Springs. I live in Idlewild, right across from Deacon Hills. And I apologize.
I don't have to ask your questions.
You don't have to ask my questions. I apologize if I stutter or if I cough. Public speaking has never been good. And I know my voice and mannerisms sometimes aren't the best either, so I apologize in advance. I may be a bit more technical than the previous speakers. I am concerned with the lack of enforcement of codes and the misapplication of the American Disabilities Act. As a parent of a child with epilepsy, this is something I do have some experience with. Now, I will start by saying that at no point does the American Disability Act provide preferential housing for anyone with a disability. It only provides equal access to housing. So in this case, people with a disability belong to a group, and that group is people suffering from alcohol and drug addiction. And I apologize, I'm nervous. If we look at the zoning map for both Deacon Hills and Idlewild, they are zoned in urban, single-family, or urban agricultural. And the key word there is family. And family in this case is not arbitrary. It is defined in every legal dictionary in the United States, and in this particular case, it is defined by housing and urban development. A family has to be a person that is a natural person and not a corporation. I sent an email to, I believe, you, Mr. Taylor, where it defines some of the normal relationships, like a marriage, having a child, or adopting a child. Other legal definitions for the state of Kentucky include other things a natural person could do, like have a parent or a brother or a sister. These are not things that a corporation could do. So having a single family would mean that that family would have to include at least a natural person. In this case, I believe it is, I apologize again, Stargazer Homes LLC. They rented this property to a corporation. So the corporation may act as an agent representing the people that reside in the property, but either way, the people would have to meet the qualification as a family. And that would be either one natural person, and that natural person cannot be more than one because that constitutes a group. Now, we do have single-family homes or single-family zoning. We also have group zoning. There are several places in Madison County with group zoning. There's Zone P. I sent you this copy of Madison County land use regulations as well. It's important that we have an orderly flow and enforcement of these regulations, because as these people graduate from their drug rehabilitation programs, they're going to need to move from group homes that should be in Zone P into single-family homes to either own or rent in zones that include UC1, single-family, or UC7, urban agriculture, or multifamily homes. This is all set forth by the zoning laws and regulations. This is backed up by housing and urban development. This, to me, is the most open and shut thing I've ever seen in the world. This is a misapplication of law. And I'll be happy to answer any time or any questions or yield the remainder of my time.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Bert. Bert, could you come up just to be able to answer questions that people have? Jenny, as our counsel, be able to answer any kind of questions Bert, if you want to just sit there and then hit the mic button, it should light up blue to be able to answer any of these questions that people have. And I think too that the question I'm going to have is, what is our role? I need some guidance here, and what our role is as a fiscal court, and how we is this a state issue? Is it state law? Is it federal law? I mean, a lot of the case law that I've read that's happened in Kentucky, goes back that state law and federal law trumps any kind of local laws that we can act on, or any ordinances that we can.
Would you like me to speak and help?
Please.
Okay. And I appreciate, Mr. Springs, they forwarded your email, so I printed that in case you weren't here, so I could address a lot of the issues, because I think a lot of it was asking me for some answers to some questions.
Yes,
and things like that. So, and first I'd say to everybody, I think everybody here is in the same position. Obviously, we've spent years dealing with the drug epidemic, and we want to help individuals in recovery. But we also want to keep ourselves safe along with everybody else, and that is literally my job as a prosecutor, right? I have to deal with when bad things happen, then have to do what I can do to protect our community, whether it's incarceration, probation, whatever it may be, but in addition to try to also address the drug epidemic problem and sending individuals to recovery who need it. So I completely empathize with the battle that we have of trying to balance those two things. I live 3 blocks away from a recovery house. I live a block away from the jail. It is not an exaggeration if someone escapes from the jail that I have jail deputies knocking on my front door. It has happened. I've seen my Ring camera go off and have to call my jailer and say, hey, why is everybody at my door? I understand the need to want to be safe in it. My role in this, though, is only to advise the county what the law has stated up to this point and may state as the government as a whole. So the first thing I would definitely say is nothing that I've said or will say to them or to you all prevents the homeowners association from an individual act. The law that I have to give them recommendations for is what we can do as a government entity. And that law specifically does restrict. Oxford House, who is the backing of this facility, is not a fly-by-night company. They have over 100 facilities already in the state of Kentucky. They are a nationwide company. This has happened over and over again. There are dozens, I guess I should say, dozens and dozens of cases that have already come up. It's already gone to the U.S. Supreme Court specifically with Oxford House. So when they tell you guys that I've already given them the legal advice of what the law says, that's what I have to tell them, right? The Supreme Court has already said we can't restrict the number of those people in that house The law, it's not necessarily the American with Disabilities Act, although it ties together, but the Fair Housing Amendment Act of 1988 is what gives them the protection in the residential community. My personal beliefs aside, I can only tell them what the law states. I can only tell them what's been happening. And it's not the first in Kentucky. I think we already have 3 or 4 Oxford homes in Madison County. Mm-hmm. I know Magistrate Bodkin, we were just talking about a 200-bed facility going down. The law that I'm advising them on specifically states that the local government cannot act. It does not necessarily state that an individual cannot act. I don't know what the courts would rule as you all have standing as an individual, if that means that, how they would decide that. It would be a hard road to hoe, I completely agree, because you're fighting federal and state law. Your legislature just this year went in and passed House Bill 248, I think is it? 248. And that's what I say, we've met, we've done it. I promise you I've spent many hours doing the research, looking into things, communicating with them to try to provide the best advice I can give them of what the law states as it is. The House Bill 248 was just passed, I believe the representative that led it came out of Hardin and Logan County. And I know my county attorneys association meets about this stuff because we deal with this battle in wanting to protect our community and, these facilities going into our residential neighborhoods. So we've met over that as a statewide association. The representative that led it, like I said, I do believe came out of Hardin and Logan County, and they've just passed that bill this year that takes effect the beginning of 2024 that leaves the cabinet, so it's the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, as the regulatory authority in the state of Kentucky over these residential recovery homes. There are only 3 named certifying organizations that can deem them to allow to operate, so to keep people, the fly-by-night recovery homes, from showing up. Oxford House is the 3rd named certifying agency. So they are, I mean, the state legislature has recognized them as being someone who they feel operates at a certain level and can maintain, and has proven that. I don't know. I didn't get to see that. I'm not the legislature. That's why we elect them separately. But they have passed that because we've had so many issues about them coming in. What can we do to regulate it? So they have passed a law recently that does take effect that will limit, that requires these facilities to report to the cabinet for the state. So in hopes that that helps, you know, my job is to deal with everything after the fact, right? Like you don't get punished for speeding prior to speeding. You get punished for speeding after you speed. I only get to deal with something that comes to me after the fact. This is the legislature's way to govern the law so that I can then enforce it later. They're trying to govern it to set restrictions up for them so that they can put those restrictions in place and require them to account to the cabinet for what's going on.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Do the residents in the drug rehabilitation houses qualify as a family?
Under federal law, they do, under the Fair Housing
Which
Act.
federal?
It's the
That's-
fair.
that's-
I understand that doesn't meet the definitions of what we say, but the federal courts have said that yes, we don't
Housing and
define
urban
family as
development.
blood relatives. They don't define it that way.
How does housing and urban development define it?
I would have to look that specifically up. I can tell you the Federal Fair Housing Act defines it, that they
Then
mean
it
it.
sounds like we have a conflict between federal agencies because housing and urban development defines it as a natural person with a blood relative.
And you're not wrong. There's going to be a lot of things that,
So
that
which takes
trump it.
precedent, the definition for housing?
Well, the Supreme Court says it's the Federal Housing Amendment Act of 1988 that takes precedent.
Okay. I can look into it. Do you know if there is a HUD representative here in Madison County?
That, I would not know that. I don't know.
The city of Richmond, and I know very little about this, my mayor knows a lot more about it than I do, because the city of Richmond is the governing body locally that deals with HUD.
Okay.
So the city of Richmond has a housing authority that deals with HUD.
Okay. So my next question, follow-up, is if they are a family, do they meet the qualification for single-family or multifamily for zoning, either as UC1 or UC7?
Federal law states that the case law states that it meets as single family. That's why I say, as an individual, you can try to enforce under homeowners, but it may be a hard road to go for that.
Okay. Fair Housing Act. I literally found out about this yesterday. I had 4 hours to just Google basically before going to work.
No, I understand.
When is the next meeting?
Our next meeting, we always do one meeting in December, so it's the only month that it's not on the second and fourth Tuesday because of the holidays. So it'll be this year. I think it's on the 19th. I think it'll actually be the third Tuesday. It'll be December 19th, and that meeting is here. So that meeting will be here.
May I ask one more favor? Would you
Sure.
mind to forward me the case law particularly you're talking about? Or just give me a case name?
There's a lot, so I have your email, so
Just
I can
zip
send you a
it
bunch
out.
of case names to go through that. But there's quite a bit, so that may be easiest. I
confident.
will respond to your
I
email.
think I've got some stuff that I think that we can email you.
That would be amazing. 'Cause
That kind of spells out a lot of this federal regs and the Supreme Court cases, talks about the Fair Housing Disabilities Act.
I'm very familiar
it
with
talks
ADA.
about the question about, I think, maybe you had about sprinklers. It gives the state law about sprinklers and where you have to do sprinklers and where you don't. And one thing I know rehabilitation, treatment, that kind of thing has been mentioned a lot today, and in conversations with citizens' emails. And when I read up on this particular home in Oxford House, I don't know that it's considered a treatment home.
by their...
There's no treatment allowed
There's
in the facility. It's a
Well,
requirement.
according to their website, they have treatment through group therapy inside the home.
So peer support doesn't count as treatment under the law. So
Okay.
that's kind of, they've worked through this. I mean, this, like I said, Oxford House, this is not their first rodeo.
I'm sure it's not.
And so they've kind of figured out where they have to be to align with what the courts have said. That peer support, peer group therapy does not count as treatment. Because then they would be operating a business, right? That's one way for us to get them out of the subdivision, is that they say they're operating a business. So they don't do that. They make them leave the facility to get what's defined as treatment. So there should be no medical professionals coming in providing any type of rehabilitation. It's considered a sober living home. And again, that's some of those things that the cabinet is supposed to kind of keep up with and regulate.
For the Fair Housing Act, does a corporate entity represent a family? What I'm saying is, definition of family is a natural person. In this case, Oxford House or whomever it is, they are a corporation, not a natural person.
So, no, I don't think the case law is saying it's the Oxford House LLC that is the family. I think they're going past that, and they're saying the individuals in that home are living as a family.
Okay. I'll look into it. That does not meet the same HUD definition. So I'll take a chance to look into it and hopefully get back to you next meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Judge, the only thing I would add, I mean, is some of the options that are already, that are not really, they've been discussed a little bit. Mr. Bagman mentioned the homeowners association and the deterioration of the house and some of the appearances of the grounds and stuff. That is stuff that we would regulate, just like we would any other house in that subdivision. I don't think we have any formal complaints that have been filed for that aspect of the house, but certainly would encourage anybody in the neighborhood that's having that kind of problem to send us a complaint that we can follow up on. I've heard parking issues. I've heard noise issues. Obviously, there's laws on the books already that can address some of those things that are outside the scope of the zoning and the business discussion that we're having today. Nothing that we're talking about today prohibits anybody from doing anything in that area.
Yeah, we did actually check with 911 as well to see if there had actually been any kind of calls or complaints to 911.
I checked with them this morning, and they haven't had any calls at all in the last, since 2022, and I don't think this company's owned the only property about 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I ask just one question?
Sure.
Come up here. Come up here.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, I've just got a couple of comments. My name is Paula Mock. I live in Deacon Hills. In listening to all this, a couple of questions I have for Jenny. If we contact our state representatives and our U.S. representatives, is this something that we can change if we get their involvement in this, or does it have to go back to the court system, like you said, through the Supreme Court? Is it the state Supreme Court you were talking about, or the U.S. Supreme Court?
So none of this stuff is ever going to end up in a state system because it enacts a federal act. So whether it's the ADA, whether it's fair housing, if it's a federal law, that case automatically gets removed to federal court. It doesn't get to stay in a state court system. Now, to answer your question, as far as going to the legislatures are the ones who create the law, essentially, right?
Right.
So they can change and create a statute or change an existing statute, however, to interpret the law. The courts get to intervene. So if the legislature comes in and says, okay, this is a problem, we're going to regulate, we're going to specifically take out the language that says they can't go into a residential area, and Oxford House or whomever chooses to do so, they can then challenge that statute to a court.
Okay.
But it may start in state court, but under a federal act, it'll get removed into a federal court, and then challenge that statute. So yeah, the answer is yes to both. Yes, your legislature can change the statutory law, but a court is the interpreting. So the three branches of government, the legislature gets to create, the executive, which is me, gets to enforce. So I have to do what the law says, whether I agree with it or not, And then the judiciary gets to interpret whether or not they think that law is constitutional, is essentially what they're truly looking at on a U.S. Supreme Court level. Does it violate the Constitution? Does it violate any federal law that preempts state law?
Well, because when you're dealing with Oxford House, you're dealing with millions, multi-millions of dollars against us, which is such a small cog in the wheel. And, you know, when you're talking about a house like we've got with 10 individuals and someone who oversees the house there that's in that house, then, you know, it is beyond me whether they're getting $1,400 a month or $2,500 a month per person. And my great concern, and I know that everybody here from Deacon Hill's great concern, is we have houses that come up for sale a lot. And so if we end up with 2 or 3 or 4 of these kind of houses, our property value will drop. It will drop. And that's not what we want, because many of us have lived there 30, 40, 50 years. And it seems so cruel to be able to allow one group, and like someone spoke on the ADA, the young man just before me, and you know, there's disability. I don't consider drug abuse or alcohol abuse as a disability. That's a choice. That was a choice. But when you've got people with real disabilities, I understand that. Now, the other thing I wanted to say was about getting this many adult people into a house. We're on septic system. What happens when that stuff comes up out of the ground? And it does, because we fought an issue before, maybe 7 years ago, with a bunch of people living in a house just across from me and down one. 16 people in that house, and it was horrible. I mean, we finally got them out, but it was a fight with the septic system. My neighbor lived next door to them. They're here today. And, you know, when you've got stuff just bubbling out of the ground. So what do we do about that? What do we do, Tom? What do we do? Tom,
that's the health department.
So the health department regulates septic systems in the county. They have a complaint procedure. I believe they even have the ability to fine the property owner if they're not making repairs.
It was never corrected. The health department came out and it was never corrected. The person in the health department came out, you know what they told us? I don't want to be too graphic, but they told us they had to see things laying on the ground. Well, once it goes through the septic system, it doesn't. But it's liquid. It becomes liquid. But this is what our health department told us. Yeah. And they never made them do anything about it. I mean, it finally was persistence on our part that got rid of them. But my thing is, it will happen. That sewer will run over. So what happens then?
Well, I'm not going to speak to the health department's regulatory process, but that is the group that regulates septic systems in the county.
Right, I know that.
And they have a public body, public meetings, just like the court does.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, and there's different people on it now than there was. Yeah. So, but I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Jim Hall, Deacon Hill resident. I just wanted to specifically ask, I think I asked Mr. Bodkin earlier, this doesn't have anything to do with the facility, but is there some way that the county can regulate or a residence that is not, that's like devaluing other people's property? I mean, is there something the county can do? Like, say somebody's a hoarder and they have a lot of junk around their house and things of that nature.
So,
the county has adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, and there's a procedure for filing a written complaint.
Okay.
And there's a process for investigating and attempting to resolve that complaint, notify the homeowner. We give them a certain amount of time to fix the problem, whatever it might be, weeds, grass growing up, gutters falling off the house, junk cars in the driveway. It regulates those kind of things. If they don't clean it up in a timely manner, then we refer it to the county attorney, and they'll file charges against them, and we'll go to district court.
Well, I mean, I specifically, and I'm not going to name any names, but one of the first places you see when you come into Deacon Hills is a place like that. So that's the reason I wanted to ask that question. I have a lot of questions about the overall operation of this new facility, but it can wait to, a different day. I mean, we're all concerned about it, about who comes in, who goes out, whether they're convicted felons, whether they've been put on whether they may be on the sexual offender registry, things of that nature. So that's what I'm more concerned about, is the overall operation. Who runs it? Who's there? Is there a curfew? There's a lot of issues that we're concerned with. I know that I'm not an attorney, my brother is, but I know the case law, not the case law, but the state legislature, I think, is probably more responsible for a lot of it. But anyway, that's about it. At a later date, I'll have more questions, but I thank you all for your time.
And again, anybody that wants some of this information that I have, if you can get with Jill or Robin back there, get your email addresses. We'll be glad to email it out to the group. I want everybody to realize I understand. I understand your concern. But when I'm told by legal that our hands are somewhat tied, we're still having conversations about, okay, what is a potential solution? What is a compromise? Is there something that we could put in place that would give some assurity or some kind of protection for what people have been talking about? And we're still having those conversations. We're going to continue to make sure that we protect property values around, and making sure that we can do the things that we need to do right by you all, but in the letter of the law, that we have the authority to do. And I would agree with your comment of that some of this probably is more on the state level and the federal level than it is here at the local level.
And Jim, if I may, just, talk, it doesn't negate the requirements of other things. So like you brought up the sex offender registry. Or if someone theirs, just because they may be protected under fair housing for a disability, whether we agree with it as a disability or not, that doesn't mean they don't still have to follow the state laws that they have to follow if it's a registered sex offender.
Yeah,
they have to be from certain,
right.
that doesn't just go away. They're not, the Federal Fair Housing Act amendment protects them as far as housing as a protected class. Doesn't negate an individual who's supposed to be not currently using drugs, right? If you call and say, hey, I think there's something going on, we got drug activity, the police go in, there's active drugs, that person is no longer supposed to be able to reside within that facility. That's why the cabinet's now supposed to start kind of being the supervisory agency.
So is there, you say this is not a treatment facility.
Right.
So is this their way around not monitor drug test, to drug test, to have curfew issue,
So
law, whatever?
I don't know about the curfew issues and anything like that. By making it a sober living facility and not a treatment facility, they are getting around not operating a business in a residential area.
Is somebody there around the clock to monitor what they do? Okay.
It is not my understanding that there is. It's my understanding that there's not, that these are individuals that are just residing in the facility together, and that they have kind of a group mentality amongst themselves. There may be someone who's deemed kind of, what do we call it at the jail? When you have the trustee, yes. So someone that may be deemed like that, from my understanding.
I'd be curious too to know if it was handicap accessible. This is supposed to, it falls under the handicap issue in the law.
Well, and I think that the sprinkler system, because they're not getting treatment in there, they get excluded from having the sprinkler requirement based on the one case that came out of federal court. I will say that too, and I'm not trying to pass the buck. I appreciate the phone calls I've had. A lot of you I have relationships with, and that we've talked and tried to work through this stuff. And I'm not trying to say the state legislature's at fault, because that's not the thing. They're also passing laws that are trying to interpret and come down the hierarchy of federal laws. But the state statute specifically says a local government shall not adopt or enforce any licensing or other requirements specifically applicable to the residential care facilities, providing for the persons with the disability beyond those that are already granted. So, I mean, that's when I have to give the court legal advice, the five gentlemen in the middle, that's what I have to tell them. That's what that law says. That's what that statute says. And that's why I say, yes, we can go to the legislature and say, hey, we have an issue. And I think a lot has. That's why we have House Bill 248 that is now in effect. So, but please, any questions? I mean, I'm happy to answer and do the research and try to figure out the best I can to advise.
Thank you all. I'll sit down.
Yeah, I can't hardly.
You got to come up.
No one in only the people in this room can hear you when you're not at the microphone, and it's not going to be on record.
So if you want to speak, please come to the microphone and give us your name.
Come on, Sherry.
I haven't prepared to speak, but it's next to the phone to sit here and listen and not be able to interact when I see some real problems. My name is Linda Hathaway. I'm from Deacon Hills, and we've lived there 23 years. I thought we would always live there until this kind of thing starts, and now I don't know. First of all, there's no transparency here. We have no way to contact these people to find out who is supervising. Who are these men in this home? How, there are 10 here this week. When one changes out, do we get notified? A really unsafe situation has been put in our neighborhood, and we have absolutely no way to monitor it unless we go out and stand and walk around the place 24 hours a day, and sooner or later, it's going to cause us some real grief. And there is no reason for this to happen. What I see is a group of people who say they can't do anything, they don't know what to do about it, it's coming from the federal courts. I see a multi-million-dollar corporation that we don't even know who funds it or why it exists. It comes under the guise of being a Christian organization. I don't know how Christian it is to come into neighborhoods, buy a home, turn it into a drug center, a halfway house, and destroy the neighborhood. I don't consider that to be Christian at all. Where do we Christians go when our neighborhoods are taken away from us? Because there's a multi-million-dollar corporation in Kentucky buying up middle-class homes in nice middle-class neighborhoods. There's only one thing that's going to happen to those homes over time. I personally am not going to sit back and watch a young couple come through my neighborhood with their children and their dog and be thinking about buying a house there without knowing what's in our neighborhood. I feel culpable. Maybe you guys don't feel culpable to see your neighborhoods destroyed. I feel culpable. I want to know what's going on. I want to have the visibility. I want to have the transparency. I want to know how we deal with this. And it's set up. It's a setup. You're seeing this far in front of your nose. You're talking about a little halfway house in one little neighborhood. In the meantime, all over the country, a big corporation that's being written into the laws that it's going to have special treatment in putting in these halfway houses and has huge amounts of money that we don't know where it comes from, are buying up these homes. People will lose their property, they'll lose their homes. I think I remember a quote. You will be, what is it? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Did you ever wonder how that 2030 agenda was supposed to come about? Do you think it just is going to happen? It's underway right now. It's underway in our laws. It's underway in our communities. And if we don't stand as a group of people and stop this undermining of the American family and the American home and the safety of our children, then we're all going to suffer a complete transition in our society. We have got to stop it. We're here today to find out what do we do to get the wheels in motion, to know what's going on a local level, and how do we stop it on a national level? Do we have to have class action suits? Do we have to pull all these homeowners associations together? What do we have to do? Whatever we have to do, I'm willing to do it. I'm not going to sit back and watch my country turn into something that has nothing to do with what I've worked for, and these folks have worked for all their lives. So just tell me how I fight, and I can promise you I'll be there fighting. That's all I have to say. If you can, and I do thank you for your information, and I will be back.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You know, you said when you first started that you didn't prepare a speech, but I have to say that the best speech is from the heart, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I appreciate your
Thank
words.
Judge, I've got a question. Has the homeowners association met and done any actions at all other than just talk about it? I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. I'm just trying to, you know, that's an avenue that you all need to really
we are
involved
limited
because
within our funding. We don't make any money off of our homeowners association. We have dues that are due once a year and basically pay for just our street lights. 98% of our dues go to the street lights.
Well,
we
but
can't
I
afford
think,
an attorney or anything.
I think what I'm hearing is your neighborhood is being taken over and you don't like it and you don't want it there. I think we will do what we can legally to help you.
And
But
we
I think the
appreciate
neighborhood
that.
association is going to have to decide what they're going to do, because the one thing I heard today was that nobody's stopping the homeowners association from doing anything on your issue. And I know that's not the answer you want to hear, and we'll continue to talk about how we can be involved legally. But if the homeowners association doesn't get together and doesn't fund some sort of action on your all's part, that's not a very good answer.
On our last one, we had many meetings on that. We had them at my house, frankly. And like I say, it was due to public pressure. We finally got rid of it. We can't afford attorneys against
How long
this.
ago was that, sir?
I'm thinking, Pat, was that about a year ago? Yeah.
She's going to have to come up if you're going to speak.
We can't hear. I mean, if it's answering his question, then you can answer it, but you just need to do it from up here. If you have more to say, then I just want everybody to go in, take their turn.
We just bought our house. We live 3 doors down from this house in August. And when we asked the previous sellers and everybody how to get in touch with the HOA, who they are, they had no answers for us. Nobody could actually answer us yet. So I'm glad I'm meeting you today, because we've still been trying to get in touch and figure things out. So I don't know if you can post letters around the neighborhood, because we would be fully willing to participate and do whatever we need to.
Could you please give us your name?
Yeah, give us your name,
I'm
please.
Carly Nicewinder.
And you live?
I live at 107 Pleasant Ridge Drive.
Thank you.
And we have 2 little girls, so that's my biggest concern.
I want to make one other comment, because I happen to be the head of the neighborhood that I live in, the HOA, not by desire, because of lack of participation by some of the homeowners.
I can relate to that. I was the
And
president.
I'm not finished.
Okay.
In fact, they had let the HOA go behind on the payments, and I drove to Frankfurt to make the payment and to get the HOA back in good standing. But there's a reason that there's an HOA. It's where people can come together on issues that they have in common. And the only thing I'm going to say is, I'm just trying to give you a little advice. We did do that. We raised our dues. We told some people we didn't want their cars on the streets. So there is an avenue there if your neighborhood wants to get together. It's not easy, but if you're willing to fight for it, you can make a difference.
I would say that this lady right here fell through the cracks. We've had many flyers go out. We have a Deacon Hills Facebook page that's daily has things on it. We've tried for years to get our community together like that. We have a small board. For a while, we didn't even have a president. We had a president as acted as a treasurer. I was president for almost 20 years. I had to get out, just like what you were saying.
Listen, I'm sensitive to it. I'm not even the president.
Yeah.
I'm the treasurer because nobody wants to serve as president. So I guess my point is, you can't have those excuses if you want to make a difference.
Exactly. I'm just been a consultant. And frankly, this came in under our radar. Nobody knew it was going to happen. The other one, it was announced to us, and we were able to get a lot of people together and you know, come up against it and fight against it and so forth. One of the neighbors in the neighborhood was actually running it, or going to run it. And we just came to agreement it wasn't good for him or us because of all the animosity that exists. And while I'm up here, I do want to say, you know, after what you said today about the federal laws and the local laws and everything, we realize your hands are tied, and we really, really appreciate your guidance. And we ask for that. And this is not the last time this is going to happen. This is going to keep coming up over and over and over throughout this county. And
we've had those discussions.
Yeah,
last week.
And you all need to figure out some way to work with the state legislature or some kind of a thing. Y'all got more clout than we do.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
this has been running through my mind over and over again. Two things. You have more power in this situation than anybody sitting up here.
I agree.
Have you reached out to another community and learned from another homeowner association about what they did about the issues they had in their subdivision with this same incident?
Yeah, and they couldn't get anything done either.
Second thing is, laws are tell you what you can't do,
Right.
not what you can do. I would not want to have Miss Mock against me
I agree.
in the situation because she's organized, she's smart, and she's a bulldog.
She is.
Get organized. Make sure that their grass is to the millimeter. Go by and measure it every day.
Absolutely.
Check their sewer.
Yes.
Do the things you can do, because you come to this body, and I've heard people say, and I'm getting a little, I feel my ears getting hot. We're not here to protect, this group's not here to protect you. They're here to follow the law, because there's people on the other side of this situation that feel exactly the opposite of you.
Yeah, we agree.
So you can't say you're coming here for advice from this group, because when it comes to I'm sitting here thinking about this, County Attorney Heyman, I'm sitting thinking about my tax dollars are going to pay for her to do a whole lot of research for a private group of individuals in the county. Is that really where our tax dollars need to be going? Or should they be doing that, funding that research on their own? There are all kinds of issues here. But there's a difference between right and wrong and legal and illegal. And they get really blurry. We have to follow legal and illegal from a county government perspective.
I think if you
But
look,
call your legislators. Call them every day. Make sure they know you by first name and they recognize your number, because you have more power with them. That's why I had to interrupt you. You have more power with them than everybody up here, I promise you. And you get a group of 40 or 50 that's calling them every day, they're going to want to make it stop. They're going to want to make a change, make a difference.
I will add too, you know, there are deed restrictions out there that say that, you know, the homes in that single family subdivision have to be owner occupied.
that's true.
You know, that
Yeah.
you can't rent your house out or whatever. And so there, you know, Tom, and I don't want to steal your thunder if you were going to say this, but he and I were talking about this actually just this morning about the deed restrictions. And one of the things that was in the deed restrictions was talking about swine. You couldn't have swine in your, well, I mean, can you imagine how long ago those deed restrictions were written. I mean, that was the things back when the subdivision was built that you had to be concerned about, was whether somebody was going to have pigs in their backyard.
That's right. It was built, it was one of the first subdivisions built in this area. It was an exclusive subdivision, it was secluded. Now we're kind of an island in the middle of chaos, what I've said is.
That's, to Steve's point, that's why it's important to continue with a strong property owners association, homeowners association, is because those restrictions might have to change as times change.
Exactly right. I agree 100%.
But
And
you
a lot of
have
those
power.
deeds-
You have power not only in the sense of your neighborhood and the law to some extent, you also have power with the community, the media, and everybody else. You just got to take it into your own hands. I'm not trying to throw it back on you.
No,
but I've been there.
I know. Our neighborhood association is only as powerful as the people in it. And that is just, I think, every homeowners association in the county or across the country is having the same problems. People have time constraints and everything else. It's hard to get even board meetings together and so forth. I'm not on the board anymore. I just act as a consultant because of past experience. And frankly, we're all here today because just got pushed upon us unknown, and this is sort of our first steps. So, but again, with all of you here, if there's any way you can work in the future with the state legislature somehow, because this is going to come up again in different neighborhoods everywhere, and the property values are going to go down. And it's just a no-brainer. I mean, we're all concerned. And I know you all wouldn't want it next door to you.
I don't, and I'm the same, I didn't get a choice, right? Like, I don't have a choice, and that's why I understand where you're all coming from. And I would point out kind of what Clerk Barger and Judge Hale and everybody's been saying. All these case laws and all the stuff that I've done the research and cited to and stuff, it's all city of so-and-so, state of so-and-so, Commonwealth of county of so-and-so. These are all governments who have tried to push back, who have tried and taken this to courts. I have yet to find a case that says homeowners association.
It's us against big money. There used to be a saying, golden rule, whoever has the most gold rules. So it's like, that's just, that's the way it is. It's us against David and Goliath. So we're just asking for anything we can
David won that battle.
Yeah, there you go.
And you
you all
have a
can
bunch
too.
of people who showed up today that outnumber the 5 of them. So.
Yeah, and we've done this in the past. We've fought developments next to us that would have been affected. We had a house on the end of the subdivision that was going to be turned into a gas station, and and things like that. And we got it circumvented because of state law requirements of egress from off the state road. So I won't go into all the other stuff, but we have had an active association for years and years. So I don't want to, say.
It sounds like this group has a chairman.
Yes.
You may be the president.
No. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Ma'am?
Good morning. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you, especially you, Jenny. You're doing a fantastic job. You too, Judge.
Thank you, ma'am. Could you state your name? And
Yes,
discuss
I'm
where you-
Sharon Wooten, and I live in Deacon Hills as well. Been there a little bit better than 35 years now. Our concern is not just that they've opened a halfway house in our subdivision. Of course, Ms. Paula spoke about the septic issue that we fought for several months, almost a year. Billy Ray was there, and he helped us resolve some of those issues we had then. Right now, they're saying that's a halfway house. Okay. Is there any restrictions, Jenny, when you place a home under that program as a halfway house?
So they specifically say they are not a halfway house. They are a sober living facility because I think by definition that the halfway house would require treatment in the facility, and that's why they specify that they don't require the
So it's
treatment.
just a sober living
It's just a sober
facility.
living home.
So is there control there of any kind that
So
you know of?
the control, other than Oxford House, I mean, obviously, it's their operation, right? That Oxford House is a 501c3 that is set up, so they have a board and they have their operations. They have their internal controls. And then again, where the legislature passed House Bill 248 to kind of put some state regulation to say, hey, they do have to be certified. They have to report to the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, that those are the regulations that the legal regulations.
Yet there's no control there.
So I'm not sure, I guess I'm not sure what the question is about control.
Okay, there's
Or
not.
what you mean by control, I
Okay,
suppose.
there's not someone there that would stipulate, okay, you guys have to be in by 12 o'clock at night, or that there'll be no alcohol or drugs in this facility allowed, or that there'll be no weapons carried on these people, which we have seen, by the way.
So
So,
that would have to be an Oxford House question on what they regulate. I mean, I know they do in their programming say you can't have current or legal drug use because that expels them from that facility and would put Oxford House at risk of losing that facility. So I would say there is some enforcement mechanisms internally, but you're able to call them and ask Oxford House,
so
who's
that's what
regulating
you
this.
recommend is for us to call in.
Because you guys are going to have probably hundreds of specific questions that I may not even think of, right? Like I don't know that I would have thought about the septic system because I hope I have to pay someone to come take care of that for me if that ever
Right.
happens. So that's not something that, I would think of. But absolutely, I mean, and that's part of even what the cabinet's to regulate. They're required to post on their website now, I think part of where they're going into, what that address is, how many are residing there. So there's that regulation in there. But I would say absolutely call them. That's how I found out. Okay. I went to their website to pull the directory of 120 other Oxford House communities in the state of Kentucky when this all first came up to figure out who they were and what was going on.
So can we get that number from you for that place? Would that be
Right now, give it to
possible?
you. Yeah.
Okay. And our concern is we are a family-oriented subdivision. We have little kids. And when you see 2 or 3 of these guys running around and they've got guns in the back of their pants and you can actually see them. I was so shocked that day when I saw that when they were walking through the neighborhood. And then I think I saw the young lady that was up here with her 2 children walking. And I thought, this is frightening that you can't walk through your own neighborhood in the middle of the day without seeing people walk with open weapons stuck in the back of their breeches. The first thought was I was shocked, and then I thought, well, maybe I should go back and just take a picture of this. I don't know anything about weapons, guys, so you'll have to forgive me. Maybe it's totally legal to do that. But if they're coming out of a halfway house or a safe haven house, and you don't know if they've been in jail or prison or what they are, we know nothing about any of them. So, you can't pass judgment on people because they had a drinking problem or because they had a drug problem. My thing is, even if you go to the HUG program, you have to fill out an application and you have to abide by the rules of that facility. And I just don't know that there's any that these people are abiding by. And they say that they house 10 people. We've seen as many as 15, 20, 30 people going in and out of that house. Are they living there? We don't know. We can't say that. We aren't sitting there with binoculars watching them 24/7. But it is really, really heartbreaking that we're seeing our subdivision with this problem right now. And I know that you guys do everything that you can for all of us in our community. And we so appreciate each and every one of you. But if you can give us any wisdom at all of how to handle it, which surely would appreciate. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Carmelinda Shear, and I live in Deacon Hills. And before I read what I prepared, I just wanted to follow up to something that County Attorney Heyman said. The Federal Fair Housing Act applies to everybody unless they are a threat to themselves, others, or property. And also that property is owned privately, it's being rented to Oxford House. I'm all for supporting recovering addicts. That said, 2 years ago, there were no Oxford House recovery homes in Madison County. Now there are 6, and in the past 3 months alone, 3 new houses have opened up. And that's just Oxford House. That doesn't include the numerous other organizations and individuals running sober living homes in Madison County. I have 3 questions for the fiscal court. First, since Kentucky defines residential care facilities and recovery residences differently, which category do you consider Oxford House and other sober living homes to fall into? Number 2, what is Madison County's approach to approving recovery residence locations? Some local governments in Kentucky hold public hearings. I have one example here from Louisville, a request made to allow a rehabilitation home called Driven Purpose Sober Living to operate in a residential zoning district. Based on presentations from the community and the facility, the Board of Adjustments found that the proposal was not consistent with the comprehensive plan and denied a conditional use permit for the recovery house in that zone. Why doesn't Madison County hold hearings? And my last question, there's already been turnover at the house in my neighborhood within the first 2 months. And Oxford House says that the individuals using the house will likely change many times over the course of the lease. You have a mandate to promote public health, safety, and general welfare by governing the use of land. This is stated in the Madison County Land Development and Subdivision Regulations. What action will you take to responsibly regulate appropriate locations for properties used for this purpose? Thank you.
And so we can get your questions answered. You asked 3. Could you repeat the first one, please?
Which category do you consider sober living houses like Oxford House to fall into, a residential care facility or a recovery residence?
Well, I don't think that it falls in under a residential care facility.
I think we've determined it falls in as a residential facility.
Mm-hmm. Because I think a residential care facility, and I'm sorry, I've read a lot on this, but I think a residential care facility falls in having supervision.
In treatment. In treatment.
Yeah, like they have supervision, so they have somebody that lives there.
The statute specifically lists Oxford House as a recovery residence, meaning a residence that holds itself out as a recovery residence, recovery home, sober living residence, alcohol, illicit drug, or other intoxicating substance-free home of unrelated individuals, or any other similarly named or identified residence that promotes a substance use disorder recovery through abstinence from intoxicating substances. So that's the statutory definition of what they fall under.
Okay.
Your second question.
What is your approach to approving residence, recovery residence locations?
So can you be a little bit more descriptive on your? Are you talking about like residential treatment?
No, I'm talking about Oxford House and sober living homes.
So sober living homes, by the law, we don't have anything that allows us to govern them. I mean, Bert, do you want to answer the question as our director?
I agree based on
Planning and
everything else
zoning.
that's been said today. If there are certain, and this might go to your next question, but there are certain types of uses that rise to the level of conditional use permits with the Board of Adjustments or special zoning requirements or special conditions that they have to meet, but this particular residence does not rise to that level.
Why not?
Because of everything that we've talked about here today. It's just people living there. And they're not getting any treatment. There's no business activity going on. It's a residential facility. People are living there.
This right here, I'm just going to read this if it's okay. Oxford House operates sober living homes and single-family homes throughout the country, typically operating in single-family homes in good neighborhoods. They operate as a family under a non-traditional definition thereof. For a detailed description of how Oxford House operates, see Appendix A, which I won't read that, but it goes into that. Their homes are for recovering addicts, not active drug users. The occupants enjoy peer support in their home, but they do not have paid staff or treatment in the homes. Occupants run the homes as they choose, manage their own finances, and operate in a cooperative atmosphere. They support each other emotionally and in other ways as functional equivalent to a family. Occupants do not receive personal care or treatment in their home. Those services are provided elsewhere. This is their home. Federal law, which is superior to both state and local law and regulations, protects sober living homes from most zoning regulations by virtue of Federal Fair Housing Act and Americans with Disabilities Act. Then it talks about going to the next Appendix B and C for more information on those acts. Organizations other than Oxford House are articulated similar positions. See the House of God's Grace letter attached in Appendix D. There have been many court decisions interpreting the federal laws applicable to these homes. See Appendix E. While not conforming to the traditional single-family concept in their homes, these operations are deemed to be single-family operations by definition and interpretation, and are thus permitted under zoning law. Because the applicable federal law is superior to state and local law, no amendment or modification of any state or local zoning law or regulation will be given the legal viability to deny the status granted to these homes by federal law. The two federal statutes were adopted subsequent to many of the local zoning ordinances adopted. This is referring to Kenton County. So it says adopted in Kenton County. So the zoning ordinances must be read and enforced only after consideration of the subsequent superseding federal laws. And then it goes into the federal law. And this is part of that document that I told others that, we're more welcome. I mean, we're more than willing to send them out.
All of those decisions are based on the zoning laws in particular places. That doesn't say you can't ever have a zoning law that regulates recovery residences.
That's not what those opinions say. The court opinions state that you can't have the zoning laws that regulate those residences in certain manners. That would be any different than how you regulate everybody. One, it has to be how I would regulate Mr. Hall's house too, right? Like if the county is going to put in a zoning law, it has to apply not only to that facility, it has to apply to everybody's home. But that it's specific that all the local zoning ordinances get trumped regardless by the federal law. So if we try to implement a zoning restriction that is that conflicts with the federal law, we lose automatically. That federal law, that's what I say preempts means it wins. It always wins. And that's what the Supreme Court decided, that's that protection. These cases have tried different loopholes, whether we can limit the definition of single family. Can we limit the number of people in the home? Can we limit the spacing that the facility is next to another facility? That's the only one that seems to have been semi-successful, is putting an actual distance between two sober living homes. That's why I say these cities and these other governments, this is not new. I mean, obviously 120 in the count or in the state didn't start with this one, that they have tried many of those, and that's when that opinion that he's read, that's what that's saying, that federal law does trump all of our zoning requirements that we may try to pass.
If she's done. If she's done.
You just mentioned spacing. How far of a space do they require? Because we have a women's facility on the old entrance to Deacon Hills Road across from Silver Cliff.
The case that came up, it wasn't very far. I want to say it was like 1,000 feet.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a lot. Between the two sober living homes? It's not the case that I'm talking about wasn't about the sober living home being a distance from anybody's residence. It was from another sober living home. They were talking about when they went and bought a property, it was two trying to go in on a piece of property, and they were trying to say, well, they need to be so far set apart. And I believe it was about 1,000 feet.
Come up, Larry.
Yeah.
My name is Larry Vincent. We've lived in Deacon Hills since 1974. Last week, I was in my front yard trimming some shrubs, and I saw the first drug buy in the subdivision. I noticed a young man riding a 20-inch bicycle, an adult, down the street. So it sort of caught my eye, and I watched him. I said, well, where he's going? So he goes down past Forest Hill, comes back, goes in Forest Hill. Next thing I know, there's a van that pulls up. Deacon Hills and Walnut Hill and Forest Hill. He immediately goes over, rides his bicycle over, sticks his head in the van. They have a talk. The van pulls off, goes right back by the sober living house. And then he immediately rides back up the street and waves at me. You know, it's just evidence what's going on. We walk every morning before daylight. I pass approximately 100 and something homes. I never see a window open in any of the homes, except the sober living home. Windows open all over the place. They must have more money than most people in the subdivision. I spoke with my niece in Elizabethtown, which I talked to Reagan about, and tried to give him some information on it. She got back with me. This has got to the point that they've got one buyer down there has bought 7 houses in a row for sober living. If this continues to go on, it's going to destroy your subdivision, your subdivision, your subdivision, your subdivision. We're saying stand up, and you're telling us, you know, our association, we don't stand a chance in hell of our little association out there of fighting these people. We all need to stand up together. Mike Coyle, Jenny Heyman, Tom Bodkin, Reagan, in the past, if we ever had an issue out there, they've always taken care of it. They've always taken care of it. This seems to be one, you know, I just see the country unraveling with people who care nothing about our families and promote these type situations, which is it's a recipe for disaster. That's all it is to it. And that's about all I got to say. It's just, they've covered all the points. I mean, you know, hey, we're supposed to have 280 feet of septic line system out there for a family of 4. They still throw 10 people in there. Hey, it's crazy. Thank you, people, for giving us your time. But I think it's a situation that, hey, we have to be different. Let's just be different. Let's take a chance. I mean, hey, if we don't stand up for something, we'll fall for anything. And this is just the beginning of the tip of the iceberg. Trust me. It's going to get worse. It's going to be to the point nobody wants to be on the board up here. It's going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. So that's all I got to say. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it. Bert, the question I've got for you is going back to the septic. So have we as a county ever been in situations where somebody does come in? I mean, I know there's many houses that are built and the septics are set up for 3-bedroom house, 270 feet of line, and then you go and finish the basement and you add 2 bedrooms. I mean, typically, in your newer subdivisions, that's why everything that's on septic in newer subdivisions have to be on an acre. That was a rule that was set in place many, many, many years ago.
With some exception, but yes.
Right. I mean, it's the, what's the word?
There's some existing lots that may be on
non-conforming, pre-existing, non-conforming. Yeah, I get all that. But
from
newer subdivisions.
From a building permit standpoint, we always require a copy of the final approved, on new construction, obviously, of the final inspection of the septic system, and that's provided by the health department, and that's nothing that's required by the building code. It's just kind of us working with another governmental agency to make sure things are getting done. When you have a subdivision that's on sewer, we require a copy of the sewer tap fee receipt to make sure that new dwelling is paying for their sewer tap. It's a way of working with the sanitation district. So, yeah, if somebody comes in for a permit for a room addition or for a basement finish or something like that, we require them to provide something from the health department that says that this new, and the health department bases the size of their septic systems on the number of bedrooms. So if that improvement to that residence includes the addition of a bedroom, then they have to provide something to us that says the existing system either is capable of handling that extra load or that they're going to make improvements to the existing system that will accommodate the extra load.
So once a house is already lived in and somebody makes improvements to it, they would still be required to get some type of building permit for an addition, for
depending on the type of improvement. Anything that's structural, anything that adds living space, anything that takes maybe unfinished, unlivable space like a basement or a garage and turns it into living space. Yeah, those kinds of things require permits.
And so then at that point, there would be a process to make sure that the septic system that's existing and whatever improvements they're making, that they would have to get approval for septic through the health department. There would be some kind of process.
And the health department will give us some kind of affidavit or document or existing system affidavit that says this is what they have, this is their improvement, they're good to go, or they've got what they need. Yeah.
All right.
So when we have these houses like this that show up in our community, who on behalf of either city or county government goes out and inspects them to making sure
existing houses?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, I mean, if they've gone from 4 people and 2 bedrooms to 12 people and 2 bedrooms, don't we think we ought to go inspect it to see if there's a problem?
Don't know that we have any authority to do that, but that's not what's happened here. It's my understanding.
So when we have a septic tank situation like we know we potentially have out there would be no reason just to go look at it? I mean, you're not finding anybody.
Not by us. Again,
what about the health department?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, they regulate new systems. They regulate problem systems. They investigate complaints.
So would this be a good situation where we would refer that to the health department?
Well, if there's a problem with the system and somebody can document, and again, it's like any other situation, take pictures of the problem, document what the situation is, file that complaint. The health department will do what they do. I'm sure they have inspectors that inspect septic systems. They go out and look at it and either report back that there's not a problem or report back that there is a problem and give the property owner whatever their time frame or period is to correct it. And if they don't, then I'm sure they have their enforcement procedures that they follow. I don't know if they do that through you.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Well, I'm sure it's like, I mean, what Jenny said earlier. I mean, sometimes you don't deal with a problem until it becomes a problem. You don't deal with the problem if it's just speculatory. And so I'm sure with septic systems that you don't normally, there's probably not a process that nobody advertises that, hey, I've got a big family or whatever, and I'm moving into a 3-bedroom house and I got 12 people. I mean, nobody probably goes and says, do I need to do something because I got 12 people?
Well, what I've found out through my homeowners association is not only are you having situations which we don't have, like the citizens here are talking about, you've got certain cultures that'll move 3 or 4 families in a house. And so when you know that and you identify that, not that you want to try to do anything to hurt them, but they ought to be compliant, is all I'm saying. There ought to be a way where county and city government, through the health department, goes out and just does a checkup. I mean, why not? So, I mean, is there a situation where we might ought to refer this to the health department?
Well, I've actually already wrote a question down that I'm going to call the health department in this particular situation and see what they do when it's known that more people are living in. So I'm going to do that. But in cities have sewer, so it's not the same with public sewer as it is a septic. You know. So, yes,
I just wanted to bring up the last home that we had come in, I brought this up to the health department, and I said, I wanted to be proactive about this because we knew that 25 men living in a 1,400 square foot house on a half-acre lot is not going to work. And they said there wasn't anything we could do about it until it actually was happening. So that's probably what you'll get, and I know you understand that circumstance, but that's what the answer I got.
Well, in this particular case, yeah, this would already be going on if there's a way that you prove that 10 people are actually living there. I mean,
And that there's a malfunction with the system too. I mean, you're going to have to show some problem, that there is a problem. If there's no problem, they're not going to, I mean, they might still come out and look at it if you file a complaint, but if they're not seeing a problem, an obvious problem, that's going to be their response to that complaint.
Yes, ma'am. See if you can reach over the microphone, Bert. Just see if you can reach it over. It's got a long cord. Just pull it. Just watch your feet.
As far as being compliant, with public health being compliant, the engineering of the home it's mathematical. It's not changing. There's a reason for the rules about how many feet of septic system we have and how much of a lot we have. You wouldn't have to have bad effluent to know that it's under-engineered for the number of people that are in that home. You don't have to prove that with microflora. You know it because you have the math to prove it. And that's why these homes were constructed the way they were in the first place. I don't see why the public health system has to have microflora. Why, if it's engineered to have a certain number of people in the home and they've got double that, then, it's conflicting. And I don't think they need to wait for someone to carry in crap. Sorry.
I understand. I think Cal, how homes, you're talking about the structure, I mean, it's based off the number of bedrooms. And I think even building code will tell us that it's the occupant load is two people per bedroom. Two people per bedroom is the occupant
That's what
load.
it is currently. And when those houses were built in the
I'm sure
70s or 80s, I couldn't speak to what the code was back then. There wasn't any code
Well,
enforced in Madison County.
Larry said you built your house, Larry. No. You didn't? You bought it? Yes. But when was it built? Is it late 60s, early 70s? 71. Okay, so.
It's 50 years.
So, and I'm sure that, so some of those houses in the front on Frankie Drive then would probably be in the 60s then. Built.
But I mean, it is worth pointing out that, we have an acre.
Oh, off Willis Branch? Oh, wow. Okay.
Willis Branch was the original entrance to subdivision.
Okay.
When the subdivision was built in the 60s, the first homes were on the lake.
I got you.
They even didn't have water. They had a big system they went from.
Okay.
And then it came from there. And Frankie Drive did go into about 71.
Oh, I got you.
And so most of the homes, they very late 60s. I built mine in the 80s. And we've had a couple built since then on day one.
Well, as long as I've been alive, it's been what it is today. Yeah.
And it used to be a really secluded subdivision back when it had
Yeah.
all the way around.
Okay.
That's why I call it Island Little Chaos now,
Yeah.
because we got.
Yeah, I understand.
Bert, did you have something to say?
I don't think so. If I did, it left me.
I just thought you were bringing up something about an acre.
Sure, come on.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to add that, there is an acre.
Just a second, sir,
Mr.
please.
Hall.
You can come on up, but just hold on just a second until I get this answered.
There was just a comment about less than acre lots in there having septic systems on them, and that's probably theoretically some of why that changed. That acre requirement came into being was because to have a proper septic system, you need an acre. Now, a lot of that's for repair, but you can fit a septic system on a half acre. They require that extra acreage now in case you ever have a problem. You've got the acreage to then move that or put a new system in. So that's a little bit of the thought process behind the acre. But we are at an acre now for new septic systems.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that based on some research I've done, some of these areas, and I think maybe Somerset, but don't quote me on that, had regulated some of this stuff with the number of beds through county and city ordinances that they've adopted, where they can eliminate, or say this is a 10-bed facility, they can, eliminate the number of beds, move it to a 4 or 6 person facility based on this issue that we're talking about, the septic systems and stuff like that. But there's been cases where they've
I would
actually...
think public health would be a big issue if it was being abused.
Yeah, and I think as long as
But it can be done through ordinance.
So you'll say, I think as long as you apply that ordinance evenly across the board to every
Yes.
home. And
So the areas that have tried to enforce it there were 2 distinctions. One, it had to be a difference between a sober living home and a treatment facility. So some of them were able to regulate because they were actual treatment facilities and not just the sober living homes. And then 2, the issue was it couldn't be any more restrictive than what was already in that subdivision. And like in this situation, my understanding is this is like a 5-bedroom home, which is why I'm pretty sure Oxford probably chose for it to be a 10-person bed. And so that they couldn't change those restrictions to essentially discriminate and exclude them from there.
All right. Anyone else? All right.
Judge, it's been a long court, but I got to just...
Seeing none, I just want to close off the public comment time.
Yes, sir.
Before we go back into where we have our discussion. Is there any Facebook comments? Is there a lot of questions that haven't been answered that we've had in discussion today?
I think there are 2 on other topics.
Okay. Could you come up, please, and ask us those questions?
There are a lot of comments and commentary on both sides of this issue. Many of the things that have been presented, just as the homeowners have presented. There are also a fair number of comments from people who are in the recovery business who are explaining some of the things. So I would encourage people to read those as well. I won't regurgitate all
And would
of
you
them.
just tell the group how you could read those? Where you
So
can
if
go?
you visit the Madison County KY Facebook page, for those of you who have Facebook, there is a lot of commentary about sober living and what that constitutes and the differences between a halfway house and sober living, and from people who I'm assuming are in that space. Some have identified as being in that space. So they are substantial. There were 2 other comments. One was from Ms. Sharon Smith, and it's directed to Magistrate Lockmuller. Regarding Boone Way, and I think Scott, and maybe you and Scott have already addressed that, but it's a road condition on Boone Way, so I do want to bring that up. I know Scott is familiar because we talked about it in the back. There are a couple of comments from people who live in other neighborhoods that aren't Deacon Hills that I think is worthy of letting you all know about, one of which was Stateland subdivision, who I guess their homeowners association
On live. It works.
is Stateland subdivision, who their homeowners association perhaps is working through some of the same things. And I know that it was suggested that perhaps you all work with other HOAs. So that is one that was identified in here. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss any that are different than what's been discussed. There's another one about a road issue. Sorry. There's a lot.
Well, I mean, I think for those that are watching, and if there's a question that we've missed, that we'll get a response back to you.
And so the other one is related to the road, 4 Mile, the curve at 4 Mile Road, and would like the fiscal court to look into the curve at 4 Mile Road. It's very dangerous, is the comment. So
Is this, whoever wrote that, is that the 4 Mile section inside the city limits, or is that the 4 Mile section that's out beyond Hampton Ridge, because the county doesn't start maintaining 4 Mile until curb stops on the section that goes from the bypass towards the Hampton Ridge subdivision,
It doesn't say.
going
but-
out of town.
But given that information, I think we will direct message them directly and ask for clarification and get with the road department to address that that question. But just so that the respondent knows, we will address that.
Yeah. Well, I know, I mean, I travel 4 Mile quite often, and so the curve in town can be a little tight there, the section that's right past the stockyards. But there could be another curve that they're referring to somewhere that we need to look at. So.
Absolutely. And I think everything else was related to everything that's been discussed.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to thank you all for being here. I mean, this is what governance is all about. And I don't want people to be disappointed with whatever the outcome is. I mean, we're here to listen. I'm always going to be an elected official that listens, that does our due diligence, does our homework. But as Kenny said earlier, we have to, I think I have a duty as elected official to stay within the lines of the law and to protect taxpayer dollars from going down a lawsuit that we automatically know that we would potentially lose. And that just costs you. I've been elected by 95,000 population, and I have to protect your tax dollars. But I also have to serve you. I say many times that this job is county judge executive. Everybody thinks that I got all the power in the world, and I really have none. It seems like. But we're getting a double-edged sword swung at us, and we're trying to figure out which is the dullest side to get hit with. One of the biggest scourges on our communities and on our society is this drug epidemic. It is. It's costing us as taxpayers on a daily basis. And I've been an advocate since I've been here since 2015 to try to find solutions. Try to find solutions to get people out of the hell that they're living in. And there are success stories. There are. Mike St. John's is one of them. My friend Curtis Collins. These guys are success stories. And I know not everybody follows that success story. I know not everybody goes down that path of success and comes out on the other side being tax-paying citizens, being productive citizens of society. But I'll say to you all today, I'm going to continue to look at ways that we can protect property values, but that we can also support our citizens, people that are in recovery, and doing it in a way that is being good citizens of society. So, and that's what I'll honor here today as I look at you all and tell you that out of the words of my mouth. So I will continue to work. So thank you all for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom. I think Tom wanted to say something.
Yeah. There are just a few things I want to read to you, and we'll give you all this information. You'll have it. You can research it yourself. But just a few things I want to just read and address a few of the issues as I see it. Oxford houses are homes for persons recovering from alcoholism and or drug addiction who are no longer using alcohol or drugs. Oxford houses provide an opportunity for recovering alcoholics and addicts to maintain their sobriety in a supportive living environment that does not require the provisions of treatment or counseling services. Oxford houses are democratically self-run and financially supporting by their residents. After an Oxford house is started, it is an autonomous and financially self-supporting by its residents. There are no dues or fees to Oxford House Incorporated by individual houses, nor do the houses pay anyone any fees other than rent to their landlord. Oxford House Inc. receives its funding from the above described state contracts. That was another page or two back. 3 basic conditions are required to be an Oxford home. The house must be democratically self-run following the standard system of operation set forth in the Oxford House Manual. The house must be financially self-supporting by individual residents paying equal shares of household expenses, and the house must immediately expel any resident who returns to using alcohol or drugs. Oxford houses are not treatment centers or halfway houses. No treatment, counseling, therapy, or any type of services are provided. There is no house manager, paid staff, or any other type of person involved in the supervision or management of the house. Each individual Oxford house is autonomous and democratically run by its residents. The residents elect officers and from among themselves, namely a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, coordinator, and comptroller. The residents have weekly household meetings. All decisions relating to the functions of the house are made democratically, from who moves in to who does what chores. Each house manages its own finances. The residents pay equal shares of rent and utilities to the house treasurer, who then pays the landlord and for the utilities. So that's what an Oxford house is. You can take that description for any way you want to. That was from their corporate lawyer to the city of Richmond. Now, I have some concerns, and I'm just going to share them with you. KRS 100.984, which you can have copies of all this stuff, residential care facilities for persons with disabilities. A sponsoring private or governmental agency shall be permitted to operate a residential care facility in any residential district, zone, subdivision only to the compliance with the same limitations upon area, height, yard, screening, parking, number of dwelling units, number of occupants per the dwelling units. For the purpose of determining the number of occupants in the residential care facility, in any dwelling unit which is comprised of facility, employees, which there are none, are counted. No conditional use permits not otherwise required on other residents within a zone or land use category shall be required for the operation of the residential care facility. That's straight from the KRS. There's another KRS that's associated with that. It's 100.982, which covers the definitions of those. This KRS 100.982 says that persons with a disability means a person with a physical, emotional, or mental disability, including but not limited to an intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, autism, deafness, or hard of hearing, sight impairment, or orthopedic impairments, but not including convicted felons or misdemeanors on probation or parole, or receiving supervision or rehabilitation services as a result of their prior conviction, or mental illness persons who have pled guilty but mentally ill to the crime, including persons not currently legal, persons with current legal use of alcohol or controlled substance abuse as related to KRS Chapter 218.A. All right, I said all that to say this. My concerns about this is that the KRS and the local state legislators, in my opinion, seem to be pretty concerned about who would be in one of these homes, just as all of you all have. And they have stated those things. As you have the ability to contact the corporation, I intend to call the corporation and ask them, because I can tell you now, I have no idea who's in that house. I have no idea what their background is, just as you have no idea. You should be concerned about that. You should call their corporate number and ask them who is in these homes. I don't think that's discriminating to want to know who's in those homes. If they're convicted felons, or they have misdemeanors, or they're on parole, they can't be in that house.
I don't, and Tom, I want to make sure that is said correctly. That law, and again, it's up to interpretation, but I read that they can't be convicted felons that are on parole or probation.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that once they've served their time and they haven't been in trouble for 5 years and they're not on parole or probation, they just have a past felony. That's they can't be there. It's just if they are right now in the moment living there and a convicted felon on parole or probation.
Right.
I just want to make sure that comes across.
Thank you.
That's a good question. I mean,
How do you find out about the person living next door to you right now?
That's the reason I asked the question about monitoring prior criminal history.
I've said here again, I'm going to talk. Have any of you knocked on the front door and said, "Hi, my name's so-and-so. I live up the street. I just coming by to meet you all. I know you're new to the neighborhood." Right, but has anyone introduced themselves to a resident of that home? I'm just saying, I'm not belittling them. I'm just trying to say that maybe on the front end, everybody's scared and worried about this. On the front end, introduce yourself to them just like you would anybody else. I know it's a very odd situation for in a residential neighborhood, but obviously hands are tied in places. Also, they are a 501c3, not for-profit corporation. They run under a totally different set of rules than a for-profit corporation. There are about 10 board members on here, top secretaries and treasurers. I'd get looking into those people. Secretary of State's office, you can search any corporation and see who their members are, what other groups they're members of. There's one doctor on here that is on about 8 other boards, insurance companies, surgical companies. Make sure there's no conflict there anywhere. Start there.
My question simply was, can you give any of you us advice on how we find out if any of these people are still on probation, or how do we find out their criminal background, if it still holds? Now, I know that we probably have got neighbors that have that similar, but when we've got 10 or more, we don't really know how many living in one house. How do we go about finding out? Is there any organization, is there any police sites or security sites or anything like that that we can go to find out who they've put in this house?
I think it goes back to the law that Jenny the new law, right, that goes to Health and Family Services that starts in January.
The agencies themselves have to be regulated and reported by the Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
Okay.
As far as finding individual names who live there, the easiest way is going to be talking to them. You guys all have access to the same abilities anybody else has to run a criminal record and look on public access and see what it is. It is internal self-compliance, right? Oxford House needs to maintain their entity. They require certain things. That's on them to make sure they don't put somebody in there that's going to violate their rules, because that's going to cause them trouble with the state. That's the kind of internal compliance that they're going to be looking at. But as far as being able to figure out who's there, talking to them is how you're going to figure out who's there, who individuals are.
Tom, do you have anything?
Just let me finish with a couple other things and I'll be done. I have a copy of the deed restrictions from Deacon Hills that was written sometime between 1967 and 1970. I've used these before in other times when you have called me and asked me for assistance for different things. I've been out there before. I highly recommend that you, as a homeowners association, get together and rewrite these deed restrictions. You just need a majority of the homeowners to get them to get a new set of deed restrictions approved. Will they be? I will give you an example of this. So somebody asked me about, can I have a deed restriction that says I can only have 6 people in a house? Well, I guess if that's what you all agree on, you probably can. Will that hold up in court? I don't know. But if you were trying to apply it to this house, I can tell you now it won't hold up. What happens if a family with a husband and wife and 5 kids moves in? So there's lots of different things that you've got to think about when you try to do deed restrictions and what you want to put in there. You've got a deed restriction on here right now that says a lot will only be used for residential purposes only. That's the very first thing it says on there. So somebody bought the house, they've already decided, the courts have already decided that they are a family, whether we like it or not. I don't like it, but that's what they've already decided. That's just something you're going to have to address. Some other things that came up during the course of your conversations was the police protection. So there's some things that I have no authority on. That house is one of them. But I'm just going to tell you this. If you see something that's illegal, like Mr. Vinsel described in his, you can call me directly. I give out my number at every single court that we have. Most of you got it on speed dial. You can call me, or you can call the sheriff directly, or if you call me, I'll call the sheriff directly. And we'll send law enforcement out there just as fast as we can get them there, because that's what we pay them to do. We pay $5 million out of the general fund budget to support the sheriff's department. All right, they'll be there. Property maintenance issues, what Bert was talking about. There's been more than one time, and you all know it, when I've been out there, and we've had yards that were knee-high taken care of. So property maintenance, if there's a property maintenance issue on that property that you're concerned about, let me know about it. We'll go through the procedure. It's slow, it's not fast, but we'll go through the procedure and we'll get that rectified. I just want to end with this one. There's lots of other things on here, but I just want to end with this one. I understand how you feel. Now you can say, well, Tom, there's not no halfway house or whatever you want to call this thing. There's not an Oxford house beside your house. Well, no, it's not right beside my house. But 5 blocks away from my house, less than a quarter of a mile, there's a 200-bed facility being built that's opening up in Bria that's less than a quarter of a mile from my house. Am I happy about that? I can tell you right now, no, I'm not. Did I do just exactly what you're doing? You better believe it. I went to the mayor. I talked to them all about getting that house stopped. Guess what's happening? They're opening a 200-bed facility right over in Bria. I can't do anything about it. So I understand where you're at. It's exactly where you're at, and I don't like it. But that, unfortunately, is the world we live in. Anything that I can do to help you with any of this, I will be more than happy to do. Yes, it is. But here's the other thing about that. And here's the argument for that. Is it a supervised facility? Yes. But unless an individual goes into that house that is court appointed, they can walk out of there anytime they want to. They don't have to stay in there. They can go in there to that night and say, I don't like this, I'm going home. Walk out the door. Well, guess where they're going to go? Well, right there's about 200 houses up on top of that hill there. That's where I'm going. I'm just saying.
And I want to
I
add,
sympathize with you.
I appreciate it, Tom. I want to add here just a little bit to that too, is that this, in my research, you know, this is a farther away step in their sobriety than prison, right? They've gone to prison, they've been to a residential treatment facility where they've lived there, they've gone to then a halfway house to continue their sobriety and their treatment, to then a sober living house. So this isn't individuals that are just, the way I've read the Oxford House program is just directly coming right out of prison and straight into Deacon Hills. That's not what it is. And this is the last comment, and we'll make a motion, pay the claims, approve the transfers. But I visited a residential facility in Louisa, Kentucky several years ago. And I'm just going to tell you, it changed my mindset and gave me a desire to want to help people become taxpayers. But there was an individual woman that was in that treatment, and I was sitting in a session with a group of women. And I asked the question of, what is it society needs to do? What is it that we need to do to help people recover? And her words, this was her words, said that society needs to quit looking at us like we're bad people that need to be good, but that we're sick people that need to be well. And that changed my outlook. Now, we all agree there are bad people. They are. There are bad people in our communities, in our country. But I'm not going to sit here and speculate that the people that are living in this house in Deacon Hills are bad people. I'm going to speculate that these are sick people that are getting well and they're continuing in their sobriety. So, I need a motion to pay the claims and approve the transfers.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Call the roll.
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mr. Lockmuller?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Just Taylor?
Yes. Our next meeting is December the
Brooks,
9th.
Brooks, it's good to see you, bud. Yeah.
Our next meeting is December 19th, 2023. That'll be right back here at Richmond City Hall at 9:30 a.m. Next meeting, December 19th, 2023, right back here at Richmond City Hall. I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Aye.
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.